Hi, live. I'm Bob.
All right, I'm adding a jar, and every time someone makes that joke, they have to put $1 in.
You put $1 in? Damn. Generous.
What is the jar gonna be? What's the jar gonna be used for after it's full? Because we ain't gonna stop.
What?
As a test.
What do you mean?
I was gonna say to feed a dice addiction, but I guess you were going that way.
I don't get what the problem is, man. It's just making, it's basically a swear jar. So what's the problem with that? Okay, in this case, called a dad joke jar. But
no, Chad has a dirty mind.
Yeah, his mind is in the gutter. His mind's in the gutter. Trust issues.
No,
oh God, Cat.
Not trust issues. He just has a dirty mind.
And a dirty mind.
I'd say one is not exclusive.
It could be both.
You are a factor in this. Both. Don't be like, oh, it's all your fault, none of mine.
Totally.
I'm sorry, that's a banned word.
What? Jar's offensive word now? Damn.
Yeah, it is. Go add it to the ban list on Twitch.
It could be worse. That's because of what some other people do or done with jars. We also have to suffer for that. What the hell, man?
Head off for dinner. Good night.
Good night, Tutu. Have fun.
Right, Tutu.
Good night.
Thank God Cat doesn't stream, otherwise I could have gone on.
Did he already abandon us? No. I didn't think so. I didn't hear him say he was leaving.
Yeah. So then no one said he left or something.
What are you talking about?
I want to slap. I wanted to slap him.
He's been in the zone playing Samurai Remnant, Cad. Instead of doing the Samurai Remnant event.
Wait, is he doing the event right now also?
There's too many things going on all at once.
He's ignoring the event.
Not the event, but playing the game. Huh? What? How the fuck?
There are too many things going on at the same time that I chose to not talk for a very long time. That is all I'm going to say. You're right, but I will explain later. Yeah, that's.
I think he probably.
That's what's happening. That.
Yeah. Distract him.
Where is this posted?
VIP.
Is this supposed to be like a festive thing? Joyous spring storm or something? Why is she showing so much skin?
Oh no, the Black Panther is the Black Panther companion to it is the Sorcerer Supreme Black Panther. Probably.
We literally have a what if comic line that literally does what if X, what if Y.
Like Marvel is literally the kaleidoscope.
Let's see.
Have fun,
Have fun.
Who was that?
では、前に出ます。
Hello.
How's it going, guys? Did just get the go live tweet out. Do me the favor, go give that some love. You guys follow me on Twitter. Those of you guys out there watching from Twitter, hello. Is JP getting a new event? Yes. Hope everyone's doing well. Yep. I am tired because I didn't sleep that well last night, but otherwise I've had a productive day. I worked out, I ate healthy, except for I did binge on some of my like Christmas chocolate that I still have left, so I'm gonna try to get rid of that so that I don't have the temptation. But hello everyone. Am I doing more Discord vids? No, not today. We have recording that we have to do. Happy Tuesday. Yep. Again, just for anyone that wasn't here yesterday we did basically just some NA and burnt AP, and then watched and reacted to some videos. Today, obviously, we have some news on JP, and we're going to be doing banner review. Also, I did talk about this week's schedule. I will be streaming tomorrow. The past couple weeks I have not been streaming on Wednesdays, but this week I will be because girlfriend's going to be out of town helping out her grandmother. So I will be essentially like here with you guys Wednesday, and it'll be Friday instead that I'll be off. Time to start a late, unhealthy dinner. I've been painting D&D miniatures. Nice. Dayan, thank you for the 54. Appreciate it. Have you heard the new Rivals news? Yeah. I'm excited. Rivals revealed their Season 6 stuff, which is Deadpool. They're getting rid of my least favorite map. And they're basically like kind of tweaking and doing balance adjustments for things, so I'm excited. They're definitely making some nice changes. I love the fact that again Rivals just actually keeps listening to people, because that's kind of wild that a lot of these other games don't. But I think they also understand that their community is essential to running a live service game, and that's good to hear that they're actually like getting involved on that front. Deadpool is able to be 3 different classes at the same time. So he's able to be Vanguard, Strategist, and Duelist, which is basically tank, healer, and DPS respectively. They also increased the cap for proficiency on characters, so I'm excited about that as well. What the fuck is Deadpool's kit? We don't really know yet. I'm sure somebody like already has early access and can tell us more, but it looks like he has the same abilities across whichever class he's set as, and it'll just change what the ability does based off the class. So that's interesting. If everyone here is already dead, then the cat and the dog we've been petting. What do you mean? Looks alive to me. Speaking of which, is there... Yes, there is a dog I did not pet. What's up? I've got 80 missions done. We're basically just stuck until time lock here. So nothing too much on NA. I'll probably go sit back on the... Where's the 90 node? I think it's like right here. Yeah. And there's still missions that I need to do for it. And since I actually did roll, for those of you guys that tuned in yesterday, you got to see me do some rolls for Yui. I unfortunately had to buy a pack. I really didn't want to have to for something like that, but I didn't leave the last roll session with very much quartz, so basically I had to do that. But I got at least a couple copies of every CE. You do all the head pats on one dog. Fair enough. And failed, didn't even get Yui? Yeah. Bakaneko and Bakadago. I didn't know the Pillar Man was the thing here. Absolutely. Using Summer Kiara for the 90 node. I mean, you guys see, I'm just literally using Takaru. I've used Takaru the entire event, though, to be fair. Like, I have, even on the Archer node, I still just kept using Takaru with the damage C. Because I could. And because back then, I did not have any Cs anyways. Izushi goes and good at MP1. You can get some use out of her. I think, again, the state of the game is such that without a damage C, NP1's going to struggle in 90++ content. But that is up to you to determine, like, whether or not that's an essential thing, or whether or not you just feel like you can get away with, like, say, stepping down to 90+, for instance. I think Castoria stole my luck. It happens. Why didn't they make Yui quick? Because they made Yui basically everything. 90++ node. Yeah, it should be tomorrow, I believe. There were multis for me tonight on Summer Musashi banner. No Yui so far. Then I'm done unless we get an exclusive Saber Musashi banner next week. I mean, I'm still very much in the wait and see approach with FGO, at least with regards to spending for right now. Y'all know I love the Saber faces. That's probably where like I'll focus on things. But outside of them, I really don't think that the devs can shift the meta too much without fundamentally breaking the game and having a hard reset. So, I mean, unless they just keep power creeping the actual crap out of existing supports, I really just don't see a need at this point to like if you're someone like me that's a lot more veteran, you don't really need new units. Like you're kind of at the point of just rolling for what you want. And that's kind of the approach I'm going to take going forward. If the devs aren't going to commit year to year, then I'm only going to commit when they give me a unit that I want. And that's, I feel like the best way to go at this point. Mega, thank you for the 70 months. Appreciate it. Sorry, 79. Yeah, can we get some love from Mega? 90+ node is diabolical, 270k HP, John. I mean, while I hear that, take my damage number and quarter it, chat. That's still 500k. That will probably kill John still. Is Alice Kwanji good at MP1 and in Grand Battle? Alice is just nice for her kit. She is quick. That's something you have to contend with a little bit, but can you make do with her at MP1? Yeah, I think the same rule whenever someone asks me about MP1 kind of applies of like, can MP1 work? Yes, absolutely, and you can use it in the vast majority of content. The issue is going to be, are you trying to like push the efficiency side of things in the highest level of content? If so, then no, NP1's not going to cut it. But that just is what it is. And some people will just run with the damage C. Some people will just not run the 90++. and people won't clear the grand battle. Yeah, but again, with something like the grand battles, and this is what I'm going to tell you guys, is keep in mind that you do have the capability of taking somebody else's unit, so not the end of the world. If push comes to shove, I have an NP5 120 Mordred that I can smash into most things. Yep. I only run 90++ if I like the mats it's outputting. I usually defer to 90++ unless there's some sort of like alternate consideration, like the node is prohibitive or the 90+ just has something I direly need, which is rare. Usually, if anything, it's the 90++ that does. That I don't know, George. You'd have to run a calculation. Like if you're asking about the specific upcoming one. We're getting close to leveling up. Looks like we got 4 more missions done. Egg! We're at 86 missions already. That's not bad. And you can see I really don't have much of a reason to keep farming that. I'd have to go back and look at what I have available. Female, male, Oni, Divine, and Sovereign. Sovereign's gonna be the one I'll have to do the most probably, but I'd have to look at the plus. So it's Vritra in the final 90++ node. Vritra counts as female. She is not sovereign. She will count as divine. Oh no, sorry. She is divine spirit, not divine. That is so unfortunate. She does not count as Oni either. So really, she only counts for one of these remaining missions, which is kind of oof. And then Janu is also female. But you do get the Orochi in there. Oh, it doesn't count as Oni. Damn. Yeah, it's just demonic. Oh well. Like I said, there'll probably be a point where I need to go back and touch some of that, but it is what it is. Got to hit match level 160 today. Hey, congrats. Good job, William. Not enough there. Shrub's favorite servant counts as all three. What, Benny-Enma? Is Benny on one of these? One of the earlier nodes? Yeah. That's the 75. I think I only touched that node one time, so it does make sense that I would need to get more of it. Benny counts as king for some reason. It's because of Inmate. That is so confusing. The map makes sense. It's just there's so many nodes that it does get difficult to find a specific one. It just is what it is. And how to D. Thank you for the 29, bud. I'm doing good. How about yourself? Okay. It's the mini boss enemy on the node that counts as king. Oh, that's great. Yeah, if that's the case, I misunderstood. So JP did get a new event announced. Let me show you guys that. Huzzah. Oh my god, that's way too much crap there. There we go. So basically, we have an event coming in. I was wrong. I'll just go ahead and admit this. I was thinking, and I don't think I'm like alone in this thought process, that the devs were legitimately gonna just kind of like phone it in and take it easy until Valentine's Day. That was kind of what all the signs were, and if they weren't going to do it, they obviously needed to make something happen real quick here or not, and that's exactly what they did. So we get Chaldean Floralia coming in here as our new event. This is not going to be our Valentine's event, as far as we can tell. There's none of the signs that it is our Valentine's. This event is going to be centric on a lot of flower-based servants. However, if you know anything about your Fate lore, it is that the Sakura 5 are all flower-based, and Violet is our one missing person from the Sakura 5. So there's a lot of theory right now that this is going to be the event that we finally get Violet, especially with her getting commented on in dev interviews and seemingly never making the cut. It looks like this was an afterthought because they couldn't find a way to properly fit her in, and she's kind of a loose end that they're trying to tie up. I got no issue with that. I am going to say, though, again, that we don't really know what the devs' plans are still for the next upcoming year, or even for like the story continuing in that regard. See a lot of people talking about how we're getting a part 3 and that it's confirmed now, and it's like, no, not really. We don't really know what the devs plan to do. All we know is that they've continued afterwards with an after story, which is what Nasu talked about in his interviews, is doing almost an epilogue style thing. So we hope that there is more, obviously, beyond that, but beyond, like, say, the next year, it is difficult to really truly say what's going to go on here. Either way, this event comes to us as an event prior to Valentine's Day, which means we still will have the Valentine's Day event after this, and it's definitely going to be an interesting one. No real way to tell what this event's going to be out. There is a lot of bonus units, as we've already mentioned. They're all kind of flower based, including all of the Sakura 5 and pretty much all of the Sakura faces, being another hint that this is Violet coming up. I will express a little bit of frustration that this is yet another Sakura based event. And I'm going to just point this out in the same way that people pointed it out about the Saber faces when they were kind of happening too frequently. But, like, yeah, this is yet another event that's centered around a Sakura face, and it's getting kind of stale at this point. I know if you're a fan of the Sakura faces, that it's absolutely not, and I'm not going to, like, begrudge you guys getting the things that you want. I'm just going to say I'm really surprised that the devs aren't trying to, like, space this out more. Yeah, there's really only, like, one Ren event in totality, and that's going to end up being, like, Saber Wars 2. And same thing for, like, the Saber faces. You basically just have, like, Saber Wars 1. So it's really kind of weird that they've made so many events centric on, like, the Sakura faces, and I do find that a little bit odd. And I kind of hope that they a little bit at least try to, like, balance things out a little bit more in the future after they get Violet into the game. I don't really know what the heck their plan is in that regard, but I've definitely noticed, as I'm sure I'm not the only one here, that, like, for the last 2-3 years, there's been a lot of Sakura face content in that regard. I want them to take a break and do other faces. It is what it is. Like I said, if you're a Sakura face fan, this is great for you. It's like it's raining for you. And I got no problem with it. Again, I'm a Saber face fan. I get it, right? Like, I've had a ton of iterations over the years, so how dare I complain? But the point that I'm trying to make here is simply from the stance of, like, mix it up a little bit. It's not that you can't keep doing Sakura face content. It's just, yeah, I really don't understand what the dev's angle is at this point. For instance, I would love for any of the Saber faces to get even remotely the amount of lore dumping that we get from a actual event being centric around a character like the Sakura faces have kind of had. So we'll just have to see at this point in the future what they do. But who knows? Maybe that we'll get that sort of treatment with someone like Lord Logres. Rin fans, I'm sorry, I still don't know what the hell to tell you guys. The devs just seemingly have kind of a single track mindset here on this stuff. But yeah, there's a ton of bonus units coming in. You guys can see that's usually a good sign. However, it's not a Valentine's list. If it were a Valentine's list, you'd see almost exclusively women getting the thing. And well, there aren't a lot of guys here. There's still enough that you could say, okay, the theme is flowers, not Valentine's. Especially because not all of your Valentine's units are on raid up here. But we do have a pre-campaign. The pre-campaign is going to last pretty deep in. We're expecting that the event will probably come after like a week or so. So we're thinking the 20th to 21st there should be the new event. Probably not before that, probably not after that, because if they go too far after that, then they literally will have a hard time actually making the Valentine's Day event that we know is coming actually touch Valentine's Day proper. So at this point, I think you can assume that it's going to happen here in probably the next week, and then they'll go into it, and you're pretty good. You can already see what the opening pickup is. It's basically a bunch of your Sakura faces, Sinnoh, Riku, and Merlin. I did see someone asking, is Merlin going to get a buff? And the answer to that is no. Merlin will not get a buff. Merlin is already cracked as is. So that is the news on the JP side of things. We know that's coming now, so we can look forward to it, as it does at least look like the devs are not going to phone it in as much. They're not going to make it where it's just a dead period and you get like Valentine's Day or something like that. So this is actually a good sign, and I am going to say that. I know you guys are maybe thinking I'm a little bit doomer on the story take of things, but that's also because I'm trying to caution people for overhyping everybody. and saying like, part 3 is confirmed and all this stuff. Instead, I'm more focused on the things that they're actually showing us, and it's like, yeah, we did get a continuance, at least in the sense of the after story. We are getting an event here faster than we maybe expected them to do. These are good signs, and I will give them credit for that, and I really, really hope that they continue in that regard. So let's see what they have to offer in a week from now. Okay, now with regards to JP, again, same deal. Not a whole lot really to do. I'm going to keep taking advantage of the half-cost Ember Gathering at this point. Boy, I tell you what, chat, how would you feel? Let me shop this idea to you guys. How would you guys feel if by completing story, like you complete all of part 2, they make Extreme Ember Gathering 30 AP or 20 AP permanently? Is the MVP of this event on today the Damage C? I'm using Takaru the whole time. Even without the Damage C, Takaru would still be carving up the event like a knife through butter. But it's definitely like the Damage C is absolutely helping with that. Is Charlemagne good for this event? 90 plus at MP2? Like I said, I don't know, George. You'd have to run a calculation. Like, I'm sure you can do it with him, but you're probably going to need, again, something like the Damage C. I would feel something is wrong. I wouldn't say so. I feel like at this point, Ember farming is more or less a joke. You get so many Embers passively, or again, when it's half cost, that you, like, chat, I don't go touch Ember Gathering unless it's half cost. Like, that's the actual legitimate truth out of me, is that, like, I've still managed to do all the 120s that I have and still be really efficient with it without actually having to try too hard. I'd also like them to give us a separate daily statues only farming node. I'd still say the training grounds are pretty okay for that, but yeah, there are certain aspects of the game that I do want them to make at least a little bit more like quality of life, like easy, but I'm not going to say they need to like make the farming less, if that makes any sense. I feel like people are always really concerned about the farming in FGO, but I also feel like a lot of people just don't actually care for the gameplay of FGO, and that's really all they're actually complaining about. And if they don't, that's cool, but there's plenty of people that still do like the gameplay of FGO. Again, I grew up playing JRPGs for a ton of time, so it's like turn-based strategic combat, it's my wheelhouse. For some reason, Asclepius is one of the bonus servants. Why? That I don't know. I honest to God couldn't tell you. I don't know if Asclepius has something to do with flowers. He may just be integral to the story somehow. His mother? Okay, there you go. That might be the connection. Only touch embers with the weekly. Ask for it. Yep. It'd be cool to make some kind of mission where you choose the materials you need and farm only then. You mean like a weekly mission and it's a self-fulfilling weekly mission? That'd be an interesting idea. Who even needs an NP if you keep getting the Buster card on turn 3, chat? Heck yes, Persona. Listen, you guys can always song request. I think it's just playing my stuff right now, which let me know if it's not accepting chat song requests. That may be an issue. He is the herbalist, technically. Yeah. If that's the angle, that's fine by me. We're like, heck yes, triple Q. Yeah. I still actually really like this comp. It's a bunch of button presses, but it feels so satisfying just walking in, counterclassing a node, and just obliterating it with like what amounts to a quad support loadout. It's bad if I'm going to be a little worried if they don't do any buffs this event. I was just talking about that in VIP before stream started, that I really do hope they do some buffs here, because they actually haven't done buffs in a hot second for like a minute here due to the finale and everything. And it's pretty clear that they kind of turned that stuff off. I still feel like the game is getting better about the like canyons that existed in power level, but it's very slow, and I would really like for them to at least like kind of hustle up and catch up the backline if they could. F? Stream should be working still. JP has an upcoming event. Yeah, we just talked about it. It is the... What is it? I can't remember the name of it already. It is the Chaldean Floralia event. And it's probably going to be involving the Sakura 5 and Violet, especially. So, seems to reason that we're going to be getting Violet soon. Will Logress wipe the floor with Gilgamesh lore-wise? You probably would severely aggravate a Gilgamesh fanboy if you said that, but yes, in theory. Again, it's the ideal form of Artoria in that regard, so you got Avalon, and we all saw what happened in Fate Route when you give Avalon to Artoria. Violet's coming finally? Yeah, that's everyone's guess currently. We'll see if that holds up. Don't assume, but like I said, it is something that we're all thinking is going to happen. I thought it said Florida this morning. Listen, if they want to do an actual Floridian singularity, I'm all for it. And like memes aside, they can still do like Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth. Like there's absolutely like the capability to do something based in Florida. It could be very interesting. Whether or not they will, I don't know. But if Nasu wants to come to Florida, I'll show him around. Did you see Deadpool and Marvel? Yeah, I did. I'm excited. I'm also happy about some of the changes they're making, other than the fact that they nerfed Invisible Woman. But there was no way that wasn't going to happen because she was very strong. And people were bitching and moaning and whining that they couldn't just like insta-gib her. Logris is also a nullification. Yeah, you're not wrong. The real question is, would Gil at all be interested in the perfect version of Artoria? You know, that's an interesting concept, actually. I don't know. Maybe the reason that Gil likes Artoria is because, like... No, let's be honest, he still would. We all know the real reason Gil likes Artoria. It's because he can't have her. That's the only reason. That's like Gil probably has no interest in anybody other than Enkidu, unless it's something that he feels like he can't have. Florida Man as the servant? That'd be amazing. I was going to ask, are you sure they're happy after what they did to her? Sorry, for which one? Do the grand battles you farm drop statues frequently? I saw more like skill gems than statues, but... Do you think the developers will have more time to update animations after the part 2 finale? They said that their plan is to update everyone's animations. Yeah, and I would say when they said everyone, assume that they mean... Oh, whoops. Oh, shit. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I fucked up. I didn't do a thing on the prior turn. Yeah, this happens. That's already seen me do this once. Particularly strong Logris NP for whatever reason here. I think they'll do it. I assume that when they say everyone, they mean everyone that didn't already get an animation update. So don't think that they're going to go back and like redo animation updates to units that got a good one already. This is Cthulhu. Florida is simply Australia that went down a different evolution path. Yep. There you go. There's Alice in the back line at Bond 5 now. I'll probably still try to get her to Bond 6 just so I can unlock the append. Jesus. Why isn't Castoria not involved in this event? Does she have flowers in her NP? She does, but that really just depends. After the introduction of append skills, gyms got way more valuable than statues. I wouldn't make that statement. I mean, gyms are still valuable, don't get me wrong. But I do think a lot of it, gyms are valuable basically until you get to like your first lotto. And then from there, assuming the player grinds in the lotto, gyms have no value really after that. Because even by the time you would run out of that initial stack, you probably got to another lotto. So it's really, to me, less of a big deal. And usually what you're gated by is statues. At least until you get everybody leveled up. Who do they have left to update? They still have a lot of units, honestly. What year would be the cutoff for AUs? I don't think there is a cutoff. I would reasonably assume that newer units, like probably everything like... I'd say probably everything like Melisson onward does not get an animation update. Everything before that, maybe. It would really depend on like the status that they're in. But I'd say it was like year 5 abouts was when they really started like actually making sure the quality of the initial animations was good. With 0 missions in progress? That's kind of wild, John. When they say everyone, they mean everyone except your favorite. No, I don't think they're that brutal with it, but like I said, I always assume that everyone had an asterisk, and you're probably going to see people inevitably upset Because they're going to be like, why didn't Gilgamesh get an animation update? They said everyone. And it's going to be like, yes, Gilgamesh already had an animation update. That's why he's not going to get another one. So I always assumed it to be animation, or everyone with the asterisk being everyone who already didn't receive one. But we'll see. You never know. They may, by the time they get done with the batch that they haven't done yet, they may go back and be like, you know what, it's time for even some of the older ones that did get one to get another one. Archer Emiya still looks like a chibi compared to the new servants, yeah. Have you spoke about the JJK fans and Fate fans tearing each other apart on Twitter? No, but if you guys want a hot take and you want to not like me anymore, I can talk to you about how I feel about Jujutsu Kaisen. Most of the 5-star servants are bound to 9+ because the caster lotto. It's a shame that it drained too much of my apples right before the end of the part 2 raids. Yeah. Caster gyms in general have always just been the worst ones because you need so many of them. Class score pushed the value of statues way up. I would just say in general, like, statues have always been a bit of a commodity because people needed them in order to, like, get past some of the leveling of their servants. No need JJK's booty. It's an okay manga. Yeah, my stance with JJK, and if you're a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen, let me preface this by saying that I think season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen is one of the best seasons of anime, like, ever. It's not the best, but it's one of the best. I really, really liked Jujutsu Kaisen, and it felt like every single episode in season 1 was kind of a banger. And then season 2, I really just did not like the way the author handled anything. And, you know, some of that I could say, like, okay, maybe the issue there is, like, the direction of the anime. Because, you know, I had a similar problem with, like, One Punch Man, where season 2 fell off a cliff. Despite me having read the manga and liking the manga for that material, it was pretty clear that, like, the anime, the directing for it was not good. But I look at JJK and I say, like, yeah, the issue there is not, like, the directing. It's just literally, like, how the story was written. That's true. Castoria is basically Sword, so it does make sense. Okay. We do also currently, right now, chat, due to the pre-campaign on JP, we have double free friend point rolls. I am very purposely not going to roll this at all, mostly to make a statement, because I want the devs to see that this is fucking worthless. And is not a replacement for the daily free story roll. You can pull this shit all you want, no one cares. Like, is it helpful to new players? Yes. Is it a big deal? No. So it's like, that's kind of, I want them to, like, look at that and see, like, how did that perform? Oh shit, nobody took advantage of it. JJK turns into at least the fights are cool. Yeah, and that's what I've always heard from people. I know people that really like the, like, Sukuna lore and everything there. I'm not gonna fault people for that. I kind of stopped caring about the show after season 2. Like because of the events. I'm trying not to spoil, but it's like, because the events that transpire in season 2, I no longer care about anybody in the show. And that's wild to say. I've heard the JJK author hates Yuji and Gojo. I mean, that's his own damn fault. He created the characters. So. Season 1 JJK was the best. Yeah. Like season 1 to me it's like, wow, you really are good at like world building and like setting up an interesting premise. And then it's like season 2 is like, wait, I have to do character development? Fuck that. That's what season 2 felt like to me. Do you think we might get another servant alongside Violet if it is her? It's possible you could get like a 4-star or something, yeah. Solo leveling is going to turn everything into at least the fights are cool. To be fair with solo leveling, that is what I always expected of it. The anime is called solo leveling. You should not get attached to anybody other than the main character. But like, I don't know. I honest to God, similar because it's playing right now, but it's like I really didn't care that much for Chainsaw Man either. And I know people that swear by the manga for Chainsaw Man. But the anime, you know, I had a ton of people try to convince me to watch the anime. I watched the anime. I liked it at first. And then I kind of just, as the season went on, I stuck with it. I watched the entire season, but I kind of finished it and I was just like, I just didn't care. Yeah, I didn't really care too much for the characters of Chainsaw Man. And my understanding is that one probably is a direction issue where it's like the pacing's just kind of off. Solo leveling got formulaic very quickly, yeah. It just doesn't pretend more, yeah. Can we get another low star? Maybe. Meanwhile, Dandadan chat. I fuck with Dandadan. Like, Dandadan is absolutely amazing. And everybody should watch it. I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but everybody should at least give it a chance. If you don't like it, we're cool. Just don't shit on it and just say like, hey, you know what? It wasn't for me. In the same way that like I'll say the same thing about Chainsaw Man, right? But yeah, like, dear Lord, I fuck with Dandadan. It's great. Chainsaw Man was like a couple of banger episodes and then blah. Yeah. I also think people get too attached to the strongest trope and end up looking for the same thing in other anime like Mad Dogs. Yeah, like I'll at least say this. At least JJK and Chainsaw Man are like trying to be different, okay? I just feel like there's ways you can be different and tell a different story without just, let's just call it murder hoboing. Hell's Paradise. Yeah, I started watching season 2 of Hell's Paradise. Been sitting on Dandadan for a rainy day. I love it. Highly recommend it. What about 2P Hero X? I didn't continue. Like, I watched it for one season, but it was a 2-core, and I didn't, like, pick it up in the second season. But it was good while I watched it. So someone probably better equipped than me to talk about it. Dandadan is the greatest anime with Supernatural I've seen this year. Dandadan might be the greatest anime with Supernatural, period. Like, and that's a bold statement, but like it's up there at this point. Part of it, to be fair, is like a lot of the times when I watch it, I got Trubs sitting there, and Trubs knows a lot of the ins and outs and can explain a lot of the idiosyncrasies of things to me. But it definitely like heightens the experience, so it makes it really, really cool. Why did Solo Leveling win Anime of the Year? Because Anime of the Year is only voted on by Crunchyroll. So only Crunchyroll animes are eligible, which is stupid. And let's be real too. Even if it weren't in like Solo Leveling still won, I would just sit there and I would say like, okay, it is what it is. Like, It's the same deal as like Sword Art Online winning. It's like it's just a popular shonen anime. Like you're gonna get a ton of people like voting for that always. And I'm not gonna say like that makes it bad. I'm just gonna say like I get it, right? Continuing Fairy Tail, the story isn't perfect, but its cast of lovable dorks keeps me watching. I like Fairy Tail as well. I don't think I ever finished it, but I probably should go back at some point. It really feels like they're building for Violet. Yeah. The good thing for me is, unless Violet is just absolutely, utterly cracked, I don't really have a dog in that fight, so. Ked, you're a Fate fan. How could you? Wait, about what? Oh, you're talking about like Supernatural in comparison to Dandadan? Yeah. I say that. I love Fate. Fate is probably my top anime, but I can at least argue that Dandadan handles that premise better. And to be fair, I always term Fate to be less supernatural and more magic. Which I guess you could argue is a form of supernatural. If they do finish up the Soccer 5, it's time to add some Tamamo 9. Okay, but you do realize every time you mention the Tamamos in chat, that Nasu, like, literally just adds another year until you get another Tamamo face. I'm joking. I enjoy this opening more than the first one. They're both good. They're both vibes. How powerful is Violet and Fate Extra Foxtail? Good question. I haven't read Foxtail, so I couldn't tell you. What do I think is the worst anime of 2025? I don't know, because I don't watch bad anime. If an anime's bad, I just stop watching it. It's that simple. Like, I pick up and I watch animes based off the premise and whether or not I think I would like it. Sometimes I take some risks and I go with what people recommend me. But if an anime is just not my cup of tea, I just don't watch it. It's that simple. Fate magic is just supernatural science. Yeah. Well, that's because also the magic that you guys see in Fate, like Rin using her gym magic, that's like prestidigitation. It's parlor tricks compared to what true magic actually is. Like, that is one of the things I find cool about Fate, is that Fate has like scales to that stuff. No, we don't need medieval turned down for what? Cad should watch Clannad? No, Cad shouldn't. I would fucking hate Clannad. So if you're someone that likes Clannad, don't ever recommend that I should watch it. New Tamamo or GTA 6 release, which happens first? At this point, now it's GTA 6. The hyped isekai that came out with dog shit animation? I don't know. Life is too short to watch bad anime. I've been known to drop shows before getting to the first OP. I'm usually not that fast. I'll give it at least like an episode or something, right? And like, for instance, what was it? What was the anime called? Let me look it up real fast. Yeah, chat. How the ain't no fucking way. Ain't no fucking way. Okay, chat. This anime, Back Arrow, okay? I remember watching this and I'm laughing looking at this. It's a 4.1 out of 5 on Crunchyroll. And it's like, yeah, even IMDb is telling you that this anime sucks. And IMDb is not exactly the most credible source, right? So I remember watching episode 1 of Back Arrow. Usually if I watch a show, I do give it like the 3-episode rule. Back Arrow's first episode makes 0 sense. If you watch it, you will finish the episode going, what the fuck did I just watch? And because of that, I just chose not to watch the show. It was like the most colossal fumble that I've ever seen on a first episode. Where it's like, okay, you know what? Let me check this out. Let me see what this is about. And I watched the first episode. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to watch this. It looks older than it is. It's really not. It's from like 2021. So it's like, yeah, I remember watching that and I was like, dear Lord, that was one of the worst first episodes of anime I've ever watched. At least in terms of like, it felt like it was trying to establish a premise, but the premise made no sense and it was just all over the place. Like, I can't say it was like poor quality like production or something like that. It was such a nonsensical first episode, it convinced me not to watch it. I've never heard of it. That's usually a great sign. If you've never heard of it, it means it's bad. It means nobody else watched it either. The prequel Front Arrow. Wouldn't it be Forward Arrow? Was that written by Kazuki Nakashima? I have no clue. Like I said, I know from watching it, I was like, that was just terrible. I like Clevitas. Clevitas was good. Clevitas was one that I gave it a chance. I thought the premise of it was intriguing. And then like from the first episode, I was kind of like, that was pretty meh. And I wasn't sure what to think. And then like the second episode, I was sold. I was like, all right, we're watching this. Because like there were signs in the first episode that it had potential, but I was like, it really depends on where they go with this. And then they went where I thought they would go, and I was like, okay, let's see. I lost interest in the end. Yeah, the ending was kind of clunky, I would agree. We'll see if it gets another season. If we truly get Violet, you know damn well we will get a CCC-related buff. I don't think you will this time, honestly. Of the Sakura 5 chat, who would you buff? Go ahead, make your suggestion. I'll shoot them all down. OG BB? No. OG BB's really good. King Protea? No, you can't really buff King Protea at this point. OG Lip? No, Lip is actually insane now. Summer BB's NP. They probably shouldn't. Like you could probably buff Summer BB. That may be one of the ones that you could touch. KP does not need a buff. Chat, if you guys think KP needs a buff, you haven't used KP lately. Melt Lancer. Okay, that I could see. Melt Lancer's another one. So if you're going with like offshoots of the Sakura 5, yeah, maybe. Like there's actually some potential there. But I was gonna say, if like no, there's some where it's like chat's mentioning some of these. I'm like, nah, y'all are crazy. Go look at what they've actually gotten. You're assuming Lasagna still cares about balance, though? They kind of have to. Ted, please, we know needing a buff isn't really relevant. No, they still have a good track record with that. We make fun of them for going off the reservation, but they 100% do like get it right. I would say a good chunk of the time. And before they buff Melt, yeah, they're not touching Melt ever again. What is it, Alter Ego Lip Godden? Breast Valley, she now has charge. Masochistic Constitution, which again grants herself HP up depending on how much HP she has remaining. Trash and Crash is the only one that hasn't gotten buffed, which, I mean, I guess you could remove the stun effect there, but they really just don't need to, because the solution already exists in her kit. And she also has a Noble Phantasm interlude, and her Noble Phantasm deals damage and heals the party by, frankly, more than most healers actually heal the party. So yeah, no, Passion Lip Alter Ego does not need a buff. She's kind of redonkulous right now. Like, is she the most, like, fluid unit to use? No. But that's never really been her forte. Passion Lip Saber needs one, bro. Please no. Did you realize that as soon as you say they're never touching Melt, that they'll never touch Melt? I'm confident. I'm actually that confident, chat. Like, again, feel free to, like, at me if they do, but I'm that confident. Go for it, Ash. I wonder if Violet will make Khazra drop loop comps consistent for farming. It would really depend on how they implement Violet. Like, if Violet's a support, yeah, that's possible. Not as ridiculous as Melt, though. Legit MP1 Melt with that upgrade just melts any cavalry class enemy. I know. Like, every single cavalry class unit not named Ozymandias needs a buff thanks to Melt. That's why I say they're not touching Melt. And if you're like, but Cad, what about the AoEs? Yeah, apply that exact same statement that I just said, except Tiamat instead of Melt. Cad gonna be eating crow in a few days? Nah. All right, chat. You want to bet? Come on. Chat likes to gamble. Super Ellie made Liz comps the thing so Violet could make S5 comps the thing too. Yeah, I will say that if Violet's existence, if chat tries to call that a buff somehow to another Sakura face, I'm not going to accept that. I'm talking a specific targeted buff. $100,000 CAD points. I don't know that I can gift that, is the problem. About an AoE cavalry, I argue the gap is worse than Melt on single target. I would say there's at least a couple that compete with Tiamat, whereas for the cavalry triangle, and I'm not including berserkers in this, but the cavalry triangle, literally only Ozzy does for single target Melt. We're all gotcha gamers. I'd kind of like to see a Jalter Lancer at some point. It'd be really cool to see it get explored. Although, if you already caught on, you'll know why Jalter is Lancer in Samurai Remnant. And I'm not going to go deeper into that for spoiler purposes. Because you guys should play Samurai Remnant. Yeah, that poll is an interesting poll, and there's a very obvious answer if you guys have played the game. Although I guess it depends. If you are including Link at the end of the game with all items received from each game respectively. Versus just base Link. Because that's the case, arguably the oldest Link is the strongest. Have you seen how much of a chat he is in that game? Yeah, the problem is if we're talking about with all items and at the end of the game, the reason the answer is obvious is because there's something that happens in one of the games that makes Link very fucking strong. Yeah, no, Omar's right. Omar's 100% right. That is what I'm referring to. Fierce Deity is literally like Super Link. It's like God mode Link. It's functionally Ultra Instinct Link. So it's like it's difficult to argue that there is a stronger Link than that. I'm not going to say you couldn't make an argument. I would definitely be willing to hear chat's statements to such a degree. Summer Kiara could actually use a buff, but she is one of the servants that's one lever away from straight up BS. Yeah, realistically, all they need to do with Summer Kiara is kind of tweak her like refund / charge management, and she'd be fine. Did I close it? Sorry, I'm just closing tabs here, chat. He could have his smash removed, though. I mean, good luck trying. Presumably, Majora's Mask Link would just rewind until he wins anyways. Yeah, it's just kind of BS. Buff Kukulkan for the fun of it. Make her compatible with Gogi. In a weird way, they really just don't need to buff Kukulkan. I'm not going to say they would never do it, but they really just don't need to. Because you can already see how Kukulkan is one of the strongest units with a 50% Buster C. And there are ways that you can make Kukulkan work with a Black Grail. So when you start considering that, you start going like, yeah, she just really doesn't need it. Like, you can already scale her as much as you need to anyways. Talking about Persona 3. Okay. So we do have banner review tonight, chat. I did tell chat that we would try to find a time to work this in. That's kind of going to be what we're going to be going through here. I have a handy dandy cheat sheet on the side because I needed to make this so that I don't get too bogged down talking about shit that just doesn't matter. They should buff Cats. They absolutely should buff Cats. Cats is dead in a ditch somewhere, and it's big sad. Like, she's not an unusable unit, but Ozzy just legitimately left her in the dumpster. Actually, let me do... Let me just order this a little bit better. What? There we go. Sorry, I just... Ugh. I thought stream would be tomorrow. What did I miss? No, I mean we're still streaming tomorrow. The reason I was mentioning Wednesday is because lately I had been taking Wednesday off as a date night, but I wanted everybody in chat to know that I will be streaming Wednesday this week. But I am also streaming today. Okay. Mythical Wednesday CAD? Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to like wake myself up a little. Sorry, what? What? Huh? I was talking about myself, not you, Ash. Okay, let me test this. Yeah. Don't like that, but it will be a thing. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and count us down. Hey guys, my name's Kadroth, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the upcoming 2026 banner review. If you guys have never watched one of these videos, I basically, instead of telling you guys which units are like the best units to roll for, kind of like everybody else does, I instead try to kind of go over all of the new upcoming units that you guys should consider. In the past, I used to do every single banner of the year, but frankly, in the past couple of years here, especially on the JP side of things, the number of banners per year has ballooned like exponentially. So it becomes a little bit time prohibitive. Nobody wants to sit through a 5-hour video of a bunch of like rerun banners and things. So we focus primarily now on the new stuff and the new things that you guys need to consider. So there will be things that you guys will see. I'll talk about them as we go through the schedule of the year. We're going to go through the entire year. We're going to talk about all the upcoming units and even some additional considerations. Things that you guys might want to be kind of looking forward towards and considering as we move throughout the year. Things like the evocation festivals and the availability of units. Things like the SSR selector ticket that we're going to get later this year. Things like the GSSRs and basically the fact that they're going to be doubled up next New Year's. So definitely things that you guys are going to want to like keep tabs on and make sure that you guys have in the consideration for your role plans, because that's ultimately what this is about, is trying to come up with a setup, a plan for you guys to actually like be able to implement as to who you want to target and how you want to go about doing it. And the reason why is going to be because, again, we're getting more and more banners in the game. There's more and more units vying for your, hard-earned currency. We really want to make sure that you guys are getting the most out of it. And I'm not going to try to make too many, like, statements with, like, absolutes and saying, like, oh, you gotta roll this character. You need to, like, pay attention here. I'm just going to try to instead say like, hey, you should try to like give consideration to each of the units on this list. I'm going to try to make the case for them and also try to tell you what they're good at, maybe what they're bad at, what they struggle at, how they've performed the past couple years on JP from my eyes as somebody that's been playing on the server. So that'll give you guys a little bit of an idea of what to expect here. We're going to go ahead and start kind of towards the beginning. Now, admittedly, already here in January, this is JP's schedule that we're showing from 2 years ago, but we know for NA that there will be pretty much a similar effect. The one change that we obviously can account for early on is going to be the fact that the anniversary for the NA server happens at a different time. Ours should happen approximately a month ahead of where it does for JP. That means there's a little bit of a schedule shift that needs to occur per ancient dev statements as to the sort of condition of anniversary and who will appear on GSSRs. So we know that any new unit that was out on JP at the time of the GSSR and anniversary also has to be available for NA for their anniversary GSSR as well. So that means some events will move forward, and that does create a little bit of a forward push and crunch on the schedule. So now that we've seen that, we can kind of talk about it. But the only real consideration, because we're going to kind of skip over some of the stuff that we've already kind of been doing. We're currently, as of me recording this, in the midst of the Samurai Remnant campaign, basically the Waxing Moon event. So you guys already kind of know what the deal is with those units. I'm not going to waste too much time talking about it, other than to denote that the Waxing Moon event actually did come about a week earlier on NA. And the reason being, again, is that mid-year kind of push forward, as we talked about, for anniversary. So if you're going to denote some of the dates here, keep in mind that some of them are going to be a little bit earlier than they're otherwise indicated. So that's your big takeaway from what I'm saying there. Now, obviously, we're going to have other considerations. Things like the 3100 days anniversary. We're going to keep getting milestone anniversaries throughout as we go through this video. You're not going to have to worry about them too much. They usually are just going to be a sign that you're going to get more quartz whenever you hit those milestones. So it is what it is, but it's not like something that you really need to like plan too much around unless you're being meticulous with how you're plotting out your currency. And if you want to do that, there are numerous tools to help you guys tabulate everything that you can possibly earn. Now, a big one I do want to talk about right here at the end of January is one that we're probably not going to receive on NA. And the reason being is that we've already received it. If you guys will remember, the Stay Night 20th anniversary commemoration campaign did give a summoning campaign and also a servant selector for one of the Fate Stay Night units, but NA has already had this. So you guys are not going to get another crack at that, unfortunately. So keep in mind, while it does appear on the JP list here, NA got it early, so unfortunately you've already missed this one. Coming into February and starting at the bottom, we can see pretty much the first thing that we really need to talk about here, and that's going to be the Evocation Festival Part 7. Remember, I talked about this at the beginning that there were some considerations. Evocation Festivals are going to be one of them. You guys can see the available units that are going to be in this Evocation batch. This is going to be, again, on NA, it's called the Pilgrimage Festival, so don't get confused about the naming there. But basically, this is going to be the return of old welfare units. And the reason why I'm going to point this out to you guys is obviously you want to have enough Evocation leaves to be able to purchase all of the copies, all of the essential materials for these units. But you're also going to want to make sure that you're paying attention to what units specifically are available and maybe triaging them if you don't have enough. Because some of these units can be very lucrative for your account. They can actually help kind of basically buttress you basically going forward and shore up your account in a way that it will allow you to have another option for some of these classes. Like, for instance, Altera the Sunta can be a pretty decent single target archer for you with some charge capability. Same thing there with Karna Saber. He's a pretty solid single target in his own right. And we do have two AoEs right there in the two Saber faces. So definitely an interesting one to be sure, but keep in mind as well, if you're also a huge fan of these, that usually during these time periods, you will have a 2 times efficiency in terms of experience gain when leveling up. And this can be a really good time if you're going to level any of these units, not only to get them done and worked on if you're just trying to get them leveled, but also if you're planning to like grail one of them, you're going to get extra efficiency here, as well as the 2 times great and super success chance for all servants during this, and the half cost for QP for leveling them. So a lot of benefit to getting some work done during the Evocation Festival. And that's an important thing for us coming off the back end of a lotto. And again, with considerations as to like, hey, do I need to roll that single target archer this year when I'm going to potentially be able to get one as a welfare? So that's, again, why I will point this sort of thing out. We will start to have the Ordeal Call campaigns again. Ordeal Call Part 2 will be coming pretty early in the year, especially with that forward shift, but we'll get to that in a bit. And then we'll have the Valentine's pre-release campaign. The big thing to understand about Valentine's is always going to be the fact that it is a female-centric event. What does that mean? Well, if we go look at the summoning campaign, obviously Andromeda is going to be our new unit, but you can see there are a horde of other permanent and story-locked units available for you guys here that will be in the pool. You will not be able to roll male units, and in case you do spy like an Enkidu or something like that in there, keep in mind that gender neutral works for both this and the Chaldea Boys event later. That is the male equivalent. So you can find them, but otherwise it is an entirely female-centric event. And whenever you guys do roll on the individual banners, that's usually the only units that can show up. So while you could be, say, rolling for Lartoria, you might actually be able to get spooked by San Zhang because she's just in that general pool. But who you won't get spooked by is Waver or someone like that, because males won't be available to spook you if you're rolling on one of those banners. Now, talking about Andromeda here, she's a very interesting unit. As you guys can see, she is an AoE quick rider. I do find the design for her to be really cool, but I'm honestly going to say that Andromeda at this point could probably use a little bit of attention on the JP side of things. She really doesn't have too much in the terms of like raw firepower and strength. She does have some additional charge if she's near waterside battlefield, and she does have the ability to skill seal enemies with her NP, but she's not going to be your strongest looper. She is somebody that you can make loop, but you are going to be a little bit dependent on the number of enemies in the node, and you are going to be a little bit dependent on the supports that you have to be able to bring with Andromeda to get the most out of her. If you don't feel like you're a very quick-centric account, as attractive as Andromeda may be to you, I can recommend at least skipping for maybe a more welfare alternative. That being said, she's also, again, not a bad unit if you do want to go after her. Just keep in mind considerations for other units that you will be rolling for later this year. Andromeda is a limited unit, as are most of the new units that are going to come out this year. There's very few story locked or permanent units available. I'll talk about them each when they do come available. Now, obviously, again, some of these other units are older units. I'm not going to take the time to go over them. I have videos on most, if not all of them, and you guys could definitely check that out. But again, they are known quantities in the FGO sphere of things. We really don't have to talk too much about it. There will obviously be craft essences for Valentine's Day. If you want a little bit of a like PSA life hack type deal here, the one thing I can tell you guys, whenever you get into a Valentine's event, especially if you don't plan to roll right away or not at all, I recommend saving at least 5 copies of the CE. Because again, all the CEs have the same effect. There's just a unique one for each servant, but save at least 5 of them and kind of store them away in your second archive or something, so that when Valentine's rolls around again the next year, you can pull them out, because Valentine's is almost always a point-based event, and usually these CEs will give you a baseline of like, say, 10% extra point gain. So if you haven't rolled any CEs, this is an easy way to kind of get an early like bump in the event and help you out with scaling the ladder until you either do roll, or if you never do roll again, it's just a supplement for you. But that's my easy kind of cheat going from year to year, as Valentine's always seems to have this characteristic. Otherwise, if you don't care about the CEs, if it's not for a unit that you necessarily want to like keep the CE for, feel free to feed them into a craft essence bomb. I know that sounds atrocious if you're a big fan of the lore and the characters, but in terms of actual gameplay efficiency, they're worth quite a bit of experience. So I highly recommend taking them, because you'll get them back and you'll be able to acquire every single one of them every year. So I highly recommend just going ahead, feeding them to a CE bomb, and then, you know, from there, kind of just going with the flow and using it to level up a CE that you actually care about, something that'll actually help you out in terms of the event. Now, there are also return gifts that will be centered around the male version. Even though we do have the Chaldea Boys event, this is where a lot of the Valentine's exchanging actually occurs. This Chaldea Boys is usually a much more dumbed down event in that regard. So, after that, we have the Sovereign's Memoir pre-release campaign. This is going to be, again, your pre-release campaign for Ordeal Call Part 2. So you guys can see before that, though, while that's all going on, we should probably early March or even maybe as early as late February start getting the Chaldea Boys collection stuff, including the Charlemagne event. Unfortunately, there is, relatively speaking, no new unit here. The big thing that I'm going to talk about with you guys as we go to look at this, we're going to go into the summoning campaigns and take a quick gander, as one of the big things in any Chaldea Boys event is how are the craft essences. Now, we're only going to focus primarily on the 2 5-star CEs here, basically BRD and Capricious. BRD at MLB is going to ignore invincibility. It's going to have all attack scaling. It's going to give quick and buster performance by 8% each, which is certainly not a bad one if you have a unit that specializes in both those card types. And Capricious is also all attack scaling. At MLB, it will allow you to ignore defense and increase Ars performance by 10%, NP damage by 20%. Some of you guys might not get MLB of the CE because you're not going to roll the banners. That's perfectly fine. Honest to God, though, I think I do recommend Capricious over anything else because it can be difficult to get an ignore defense CE out there in the game. And this one, even if it's non-MLB, still has pretty decent effects, as it's functionally going to be the equivalent of a like Ocean Flyer or something like that. Just you're trading out the 50% charge for defense ignore. So those are the considerations I would tell you there. Again, if you really, really want a taunt CE in this game and you can't seem to find a banner to get one, there is the ability on NA to go back and do the 2017, actually, I believe it's the 2019 version on NA, the one that has the Outrage CE in it. You can go into your Rare Prism shop. I believe it costs 3 Rare Prisms. You can unlock the 2019 Chaldea Boys Exchange if you haven't already done it before. Get that in there, choose Outrage, and that is a free, assuming you don't care about the Rare Prisms, taunt CE for you that you won't have to gacha for. So that's another tip for you guys there. Then from there, we're going to get the ID chapter released, and this is going to be Ordeal Call 2. This is going to be a little bit of a big one here for us, but it's going to bring in our first story-locked unit of the year in Marie Antoinette Alter. Now, Marie Alter is a very interesting one. This should be happening again late March, but again, it'll probably be a little bit earlier, maybe mid-March or maybe even early March, depending on how much the shift occurs for NA. But Marie Antoinette, as we already mentioned, she's story locked. She is an AoE Arts Avenger, and what she lacks in damage output, she more than makes up for in consistency and challenge applicability. So you guys can see she does have charge. She has NP regen per turn. She has the ability to increase her own damage against enemies that have curse status, which also means you can double this up with curse command codes. It means you can definitely slot in CEs for her that boost damage against cursed enemies, and you can get a lot of ability there, as well as the 3-turn arts up. And then self-invincibility, just like her rider form of 3 attacks, 3 turns, as well as granting the party guts except herself and healing, does make her a pretty nice support, and pairing alongside, like, let's say the Castorias, as that's going to give them a little bit of an out should something have the ability to get through solemn defense, or again, just be kind of slowly chipping away at them. So Marie Antoinette can work not only as a little bit of a lesser damage farmer with good regen, but also as a little bit of a challenge unit that can help keep your supports alive. I do feel like in terms of overall viability, she hasn't been super strong as the years have gone by on JP, but but she is still pretty quality, and I do think a lot of people like the design, so I'm not going to blame anybody for rolling for her. I myself will probably try to at least pick up a copy or two. And you guys can see she has the ability to inflict curse with her Noble Phantasm, then apply the evil curse status that's going to boost it, and then also drain the gauge and have a 60% chance to instant kill. All of that's fantastic. That's exactly what you like to see. It's great for challenge content, as it does mean that you can chip away at enemies as well as drain them and deprive them of their NP. And given the fact that she is AoE, this is really, really strong for her to be able to deprive an entire enemy wave of being able to retaliate. So again, I do really, really like Marie in that regard. I think she's kind of one of those sneaky good units that a lot of people will either just roll anyways because they like the designs that she has, or they're going to end up kind of ignoring her, thinking that she just doesn't do enough firepower and kind of miss out on a little bit of a hidden gem for challenge purposes. Now, next up here, we have Hassan of the Shining Star. He is our 4-star, and he is permanent. Taking a look at him just right off the bat, the big thing you guys need to know is he is a 6-hit AoE Arts NP. So he is kind of like a 4-star variant of almost 100 Faces in that regard. And you can see he does get super effective damage against man attribute, as well as an overcharge effect that boosts his arts and quick performance. He also is one of the few that's going to actually interact with the Darkness battlefield. When it came out, he was functionally a new battlefield type for him. We have seen a couple other interactions with it, but not too much still yet. Still an interesting thing in that regard. He does have multi-turn steroids. He does have multi-time evasion. So he's at least pretty serviceable for a 4-star unit. Though admittedly, he is a little bit disjointed with him being an arts unit, but getting NP gauge when attacking with quick cards. It feels like they're trying to lean into the triple quick deck. I'm not really sure why they wanted to go with that too hard, other than to make him a little bit more of the stereotypical assassin. Again, I have a video on him detailing how to properly use him and get the most out of him. And you can see at least the triple quick cards that he has are 6-hit. I do think he's, again, serviceable. He is certainly a newer unit, and that does at least bear some consideration as to like why he hasn't gotten a lot of upgrades or things like that. But at the end of the day, most of you guys should have very capable options for your assassins, particularly if you can hold out on a 4-star AoE assassin. You're going to get a much, much better one at the start of the next year compared to Hassan of the Shining Star. But again, if you like him and you like his JoJo-esque design there, feel free to go after him. He is on a already relatively lucrative pairing here with Marie Antoinette. Your second campaign is going to be Jalter. The only reason I'm going to bring this up is because this is actually when Jalter is going to get her 50% charge update. So that will be a huge buff for her. But I'm going to caution you guys against splurging on her unless you're a big Jalter fan for one other reason. Summoning Campaign 3 will include Tyra and Marie Antoinette Ryder. And Summoning Campaign 4 will include the Count of Monte Cristo, our next unit, as a limited single target quick Avenger. So unlike his other form, basically Dante's is not going to be AoE here. He's instead going to be single target, and he's going to focus a lot more on just sheer obliteration of his foes. As you guys can see, he gets the multi-turn Quicken Buster up, 2 times invincibility for 3 turns, basically gets the ability to debuff on attack to inflict burn. He's also going to grant himself poison and debuff immunity for 3 turns. And from there, his third skill is a 50% charge and 50% crit damage. If that was not enough, he also gets, again, fairly good absorption that'll help him out as an Avenger to be able to kind of soak stars. And his Noble Phantasm is a 10-hit single target quick NP that's going to ignore invincibility for 1 turn, have a 500% chance to stun them, and then deal damage, and then it will deal super effective scaling damage based off the stacks of burn on the enemy. So this isn't even just, oh, you need burn on the enemy. No, it's how many burns can we stack and how much can I get out of that? So yeah, honestly, the Count of Monte Cristo here, his new form, King of the Cavern, is just ridiculously strong. It's something that a lot of you guys should be paying attention to. Again, apologies to the Jalter fans out there, but if you're not the biggest Jalter fan, holding off for at least like a week or so there and waiting for the Count to get his banner is probably your better play, assuming you have these supports to actually support him. Because he can functionally do a lot of the same stuff that Jalter can do. Instead of buff blocking, though, he's just going to stun their ass. So they're not really going to get a turn unless they manage to have like debuff or stun immunity somehow. So you guys can see he's very, very capable at just kind of slicing up bosses and not really giving them much of an opportunity to do anything back. Though, again, there are a fair amount of bosses that actually do have like debuff immunity. And if that's the case, just be careful because, again, well, he won't be a sitting duck. He will not be able to count on that stun to be able to protect him as much as he already is. Still, again, I do feel like King of the Cavern here is a really, really powerful unit upcoming this year. He's one that I think a lot of people will underestimate the amount of damage he does. He is up there on the charts, so it's definitely one that a lot of you guys will probably like once you get your hands on him. I'm not going to say you have to build him into your role plans. I'm just going to say pay attention to him, maybe consider him, maybe set aside some funds if you feel like he's somebody that you would like and you need that single target Avenger. Now, next up here, we have another story. It's going to be our 4-star, and it's going to be a pretender, Alessandro de Cagliostro. Cagliostro is a really interesting unit. He does have some very niche uses, but he also has a little bit of a clunky kit. You guys can see he's a rare triple arts unit in the current stage of the game. The devs tried to get away from triple arts because I think on one hand, for carding purposes, it's not the strongest, but on the other hand, for getting back to a Noble Phantasm and pairing with arts supports, it is just really strong. So you guys can see he has the ability to charge his own gauge by 50%. And again, grant himself 30% NP damage up. He has a self-gut status for 1 time 5 turns that whenever his guts is activated will charge his own NP gauge by 30% and increases his NP generate for 5 turns by 30%. On top of that, and actually I should definitely mention this, that if you do lower the skill, well, it has a 10-turn cooldown. It also has a 10,000 HP amount from the guts. I don't even want to think about what this would do paired with Logress. Dear Lord. But the third skill here is going to be an increase to his own arts performance and critical damage for 3 turns. It's really going to help him out in that regard because he's going to need that extra arts up really to be successful. And we can see as we move on, he's going to have a 4-hit, basically AoE arts NP that's going to remove all enemies' defensive buffs activating first. So Cagliostro are going to be a sneaky good unit for challenge stuff. Again, if you're taking them into like story content, as long as they don't have the silver box around their like defensive buff, he's going to remove it. He's going to be able to remove anything that's not bolted down, essentially, that is a defensive buff. What this does not include is Guts, just so you guys remember. Guts is considered to be a restorative buff, not a defensive buff, but it will remove anything like Solemn Defense, Invincibility, or Evasion, as well as just straight up defense and other variants of it. So it's a very, very strong effect to have, especially with it going out before damage output hits the target, as that's going to make it very difficult for anybody to stop Cagliostro from dealing damage to them. From there, he'll reduce defense and, again, deal super effective damage to lawful alignment people. So he does have a little bit of a niche there. Again, you do also have Janako that has the anti-lawful niche built in as another arts unit. So you can get a little bit of a nasty pairing there in that regard. So Cagliostro, again, a little bit of a clunky unit, but still fairly solid for him being what he is. Just keep in mind, he is story locked, so you won't be able to get him until after you've beaten it, but also at the same time, it's only going to be available otherwise unless you roll this first banner. So that's just going to be a difficult one for people. If they're going to roll for Monte Cristo, they're going to get him, but if they don't, they're probably not going to see him for a hot second. Now, I should be mentioning that we do at least have a new form of the ye old poison pill CE here, and the one who failed to attain immortality. It's the Zokin CE from before, except it's a new variant of it. This one still scales to 2400 attack power, but now when you die with this equip, it's going to have a 200% chance to skill seal the enemy of the unit that actually killed him off for 2 turns. So instead of the other version being NP seal, this one's going to be skill seal. There may be some niche applications of that. And we'll have a 200% chance to inflict curse with 1,000 damage to them. You could use this to set up somebody else that, for instance, scales off of curse damage. But it is an interesting scene nonetheless. I'm not going to say it's one that you guys have to like run out and get, but it's something that I felt like I should mention, because while it's not on rate up in any of these banners, it does become available with its release. So we will have the Spring Master Aid campaigns at this point. Nothing too much to write home about in that sort of regard. Obviously, you guys can see just some courts, some tickets. We'll see whether or not NA gets these sorts of things. NA new like reward craft essence, as well as some additional campaigns available for you, including Start Dash. Don't be caught looking at these going like, oh my god, I'm going to get all that stuff for myself. Not if you're already playing. There will be summoning campaigns. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that this is the return of Castoria yet again. So for those of you guys that are newer players trying to like find a good opportunity to pick up some of these supports, well, I did tell you guys I'm not going to go over older units. I felt like I should at least mention kind of the game's most meta support caster at this point being available there. And as we tread into April here, we can see that we get Evocation Festival Part 8. Now, this is going to be another interesting one, and to me, this one's a little bit better, I would argue, than the prior one, for a couple of reasons. One, we have 2 single-target Lancers here, both of which are pretty serviceable. You, again, have Consort U Lancer, who's anti-man. You have, what's-her-face? Nagao Kagetora. Sorry, I could not remember her name all of a sudden. Basically the younger form of Uesugi Kenshin, that she is going to be a fairly serviceable single target Arts Lancer that can actually do some looping power for you, and she will get her buff here. So again, if you're looking at alternatives and you feel like you're really needy in that single target Lancer department, this Evocation Festival here at the beginning of April, or again maybe even late March on NA, is going to be a really, really valuable one for you guys to be able to kind of fill that hole. On top of that, you will have a summoning banner for Melt and a bunch of other units here. But the big one to me, the big takeaway, is actually going to be BB's availability. For those of you guys that just need a Moon Cancer, having BB come back as a permanently available unit, where you can now also get your Servant coins for her. Yes, that's right, because while BB has been available via the main interlude sections, you haven't been able to get Servant coins for her before. So that will be a consideration for a lot of people that are trying to make their BB stronger and kit her out either with some appends or trying to 120 her for a potential Grand or Grail target there. Either way, I think this Evocation Festival is going to be pretty darn solid. And you guys can see there will obviously be some interesting Cs on rate up, including our Conquest of the Ocean of the Stars, which is altogether a little bit of a disjointed C, but not bad. As well as Midsummer Moment, that could be a pretty interesting challenge one. And let's see, Rivalry of the Local Warlords there is also not a bad one, as it's 50% gauge at MLB. You have quite a bit of capability, and then Innocent Blue, split stats, but not bad altogether. So it's kind of some older, like, Chaldea Boys and Summer Seas there. Okay. So with that, you're going to have Ordeal Call Campaign Part 6. Again, whenever we see these are basically just going to be things that are going to start bringing in quality of life. It's going to start bringing in new nodes to the Bleached Earth. And obviously summoning campaigns with it. The reason I'm pulling it up, you guys can see again, there's Lady Avalon. So for those of you guys, again, that have maybe followed like the new player guide or any of the videos that I put out starting the new player account, you pretty much have a nice window here, March to April, to be able to roll Castoria and Lady Avalon and get an art setup already up and going for your account really quickly, assuming you can manage to snag both of them. We had the Witch on the Holy Night pre-release collaboration, kind of showing this one off. This is going to be the return of some older units. particularly Ilya and all that. But I'm going to say I would abstain from rolling on anything like that because Witch on the Holy Night, aka the Kumano Hot Springs Killer Case, this is the Witch on the Holy Night collab event. This one's gonna be good. There's gonna be a lot to pay attention to here because there is obviously going to be some nice game updates. So you can actually see, you'll get Noble Phantasm forms can now be viewed in the servant details screen because Aoko actually has the capability to change. You're gonna get some strengthening quests here for again. Oh God, what's her name? Why can't I not think of it all of a sudden? Fujino. And basically, oh my God, Calamity Jane. Sorry, so many servants in a row, my brain starts shutting down. But both these are going to be actually really, really nice ones. Again, the charge going to Fujino and the additional stars basically really helping her out in both of those upgrades there. As we look at the summoning campaigns for this, you're going to start out with Aozaki Aoko. And Aoko, for those of you guys who know, obviously a lot of you guys are just going to roll her based off name alone, based off, Nasuverse considerations, because you're already familiar with her from Witch on the Holy Night. I'm not going to blame anyone for that, but I have to be a little bit harsh here because Aoko has some interesting capabilities. She's basically going to be our first servant entering the game that actually has AoE attacks. The problem here is that the way that they have set her up is fairly disjointed. Honestly, I could see them buffing Aoko in a weird way because the way she kind of is set up to work, she works actually pretty similar to Paladin Mash, for those of you guys who are aware, where she kind of has to get off a Noble Phantasm first, and then she moves into her actual damage-dealing form. The issue here is with Paladin Mash, she has the damage output and the utility to kind of make up for it. Aoko has some of that, but I'd say that Mash is more like the perfected form of what that should be, whereas Aoko is more of a, like, I hate to say this, but an improvement on basically an older model type for a unit, aka Jekyll and Hyde. Jekyll and Hyde has a major problem in their kit, and the fact that, like, everything's kind of better in the Berserker form, and they don't really get anything out of getting a Noble Phantasm in the Berserker form. Aoko doesn't have either of those problems, but the issue is that you do want to rush to get her to that second form as fast as possible. And so you can see there are differences between both normal form Aoko, aka the support Aoko, and super Aoko, aka the damage dealing one, particularly her Buster and extra attacks being AoE. So whenever you use those cards, it will deal AoE damage. The interesting thing to denote is that her fourth card in the deck in the super form is Arts, in the normal form is Buster. So it's going to change from Buster to Arts. You need to be careful with that if you have it set up to have her Noble Phantasm, changing her into the Super Aoko form, and then queue up cards afterwards thinking, oh, I'm going to get two AoE attacks there. And it's like, no, you're not going to necessarily. So this was something that they kind of addressed later on and actually included some quality of life to make that a little bit easier to detect. We'll see. That might actually come out with her launch on NA so that they don't have that time. But she's a really complex unit. I'm going to say, if you want to know more about Aoko, please go watch my video. There's some interesting mechanics at play here, especially with the magic bullet stuff, as even the game's damage caps and stat caps have an exception for Aoko. So that's why I'm going to try not to cover too much of her right here on this video, and I'm going to instead say, go watch my servant analysis on her, and you'll get a better idea about how she works. As for how she's held up over the years, I think a lot of people, I've seen very mixed viewpoints on her. Everyone was really gung-ho for her when she first came out. Some people feel like she just was not worth it, and they've never really used her since the event that she came out in. Other people feel like she's still a really unique and really fun unit, and that they have seen times that she's been really useful with certain comps. So it really just depends on your viewpoint. She's a tough unit to nail down because of the sheer amount of capability that she has in both of her forms. So it's one of the reasons why I'm again telling you guys, hey, don't necessarily just look at like the images on the screen here, go watch my other video where you guys can get a little bit more of a better feel for her and what she can do. Now, the other thing to denote is that in her original form, whenever she does use her Noble Phantasm, this will change her into Super Aoko. That's how that mechanic works. It's also going to increase her own Buster performance and extra attack performance permanently. Once she's in that form, she can't really go back. That's kind of the issue that you have. So it's a one-way trip for her. And it's also going to remove her own second active skill buffs. So just keep that in mind when you're plotting things out. But again, Aoko is a very, very interesting unit. You're going to see a lot of people roll for her just because they like her. She's not a gotta have. She's the epitome of a luxury unit, in my opinion. But she is a really fun unit. And as for whether or not she holds up, that one's going to be in the eye of the beholder, depending on how you want to use her. Okay, now for the second campaign there, you're going to get the return of Space Ishtar. For the third campaign, we're going to get Alice. Alice is going to be our new AoE caster, basically. But one of the reasons we're going to talk about her is because she is very unique with sort of certain aspects of her kit. Now, the big thing to point out here is she is a quick AoE caster. But you'll notice she only has the 2 quick cards in her deck and 2 arts cards. And that's apparent right away off the bat as they immediately go with quick and arts performance of 20% for 3 turns. And then also the charging of her own NP gauge by 50%. So you really want to lower this skill if you can help it, because it's also her NP gain rate. There's so much of her performance tied into this first skill. That being said, her second skill is going to increase her attack and defense for 3 turns. It's going to increase her attack on Forest, City, or Darkness battlefield and defense on it as well for 3 turns, even further should those come into play. So already after Hassan, you have somebody immediately also interacting with Darkness battlefield. And then the third skill here is going to be Last Robin Rondo, and this one can only be used when the skill user has the Robin counter left. Basically, it's going to grant self-substitution status for 1 attack, 2 turns. Special anti-purge defense is what this is. So this is going to be a unique form of solemn defense. Again, go watch my video on her for a little bit more of an explanation here, but that is definitely something to be considered. She is a 70% charger as opposed to just getting the 50% off the first skill. She gets another 20% there. It's actually really nice for somebody that, realistically speaking, just has some great capability already and solemn defense for herself. But how is she trended now over time? We'll talk about that, but let's quickly go down and talk about the Noble Phantasm. It's going to increase evasion for 1 turn, increase her own damage against human enemies by 30% for 1 turn. So just a power mod there of 30%. Deals damage to all enemies and inflicts terror status that has a chance to stun them, reducing their critical attack chance as well, and then dealing super effective damage to man attributes. So do denote that human is different here than just the man attribute. Now, why did I say that that her performance is something we need to talk about? Because over time here with quick units, we have gotten the likes of Summer Tiamat, and Summer Tiamat's going to work really well with someone like Alice. It's going to make Alice nigh unkillable and almost a quick variant of that invincible comp, at least from her own standpoint. Summer Tiamat's going to struggle a little bit when those buffs fall off, but obviously you have plenty of time to be able to get the enemy killed in that regard, and they're not really going to have much say in how they can kind of go about attacking you in the interim. So it is an interesting addition to quick units that's going to function and hybridize really well with Alice. So I do believe Alice holds up quite well over time. She's not necessarily the best caster in the game. She's not necessarily somebody that you have to have, but I definitely saw a lot of people roll her at the event, and they were very happy to receive her, and especially with some of the, like, again, improvements of the quick system around her, rather than necessarily improvements directly to her that helped her out. That's going to conclude things for April for us, with that event probably overlapping into May. We're going to get the 3200 days anniversary. Again, nothing too much to write home about there, just even more courts for you guys. And then they took a survey where they decided they were going to rerun some old events. Now, we don't need to really get into the banners at play here for the Chaldean Summer Adventure. This is basically an old summer event coming back. But the reason it is significant is because if you guys haven't paid attention, this event is a miniature lotto. It has the treasure box mechanic, and that treasure box mechanic is really, really solid on top of having an event shop, on top of having point rewards. So again, a whole lot going on here. Let me see if I can actually find the treasure box mechanic for you guys real quick. Yeah, so basically you will get treasure boxes as you do things, and you will be able to secure quite lucrative rewards in terms of what comes out of them. So it's a miniature lotto. You're not going to be getting things like embers and stuff, but you will be getting all ascension mats, which is usually what people crave the most. And that's where I'm going to say this one's going to be a really, really nice event, especially for those of you guys that have already farmed it before, because you'll still have the CEs from last time. Right? So again, we don't have to go too much into anything else here. There were some updates to give people updates to their kind of costs for their costumes, but nothing really too much else. And then the return of old event Cs and old units from the event. And like I said, that should take part probably early May for us. Realistically speaking, this will probably be one of the last things before Anniversary. Now, we did actually manage to get an interlude campaign, a very rare one. You guys know we don't really get strengthening and interlude campaigns outside of Anniversary very much anymore. Not too much to go off of, but this is the Noble Phantasm interlude for Constantine here, and this is going to be the skill upgrade for Don Quixote. So you do have at least some again improvements coming in and things to consider, and it will be a banner for both of them, but otherwise nothing really too much in the realm of that one. We do have the participation aid campaigns. These are again just trying to get people kind of caught up, because they put everybody on notice that summer this year was going to be a bit of a doozy, and it was going to be kind of locked a little bit to Ordeal Call 3. So that was something that everyone was surprised about. Nobody expected it to be that fast, but they started trying to get everybody kind of up and running for that. They did have a user questionnaire as well. They asked people, this is basically their survey. They hadn't had one in a long time. Unfortunately, we don't know when the next survey will be for NA. If we're lucky, we'll see one here in January, but it really just depends. And then we have the pre-release campaign for the Dancing Dragon event. This is going to be a new event coming out. This one, you guys should be able to rest assured that this will probably be the last thing that happens before Anniversary, because this is one that has to come out. There is also another interlude campaign, ironically enough, where we do get a Noble Phantasm upgrade for Dobrynya. This does help her out a little bit, but ultimately she still has a little bit of issues with her design, in my opinion. Still really like the unit, but I would love to see them do a little bit more. Now, next up, again, we have the Dancing Dragon Castle. This one is going to start off in late June, but for NA's purposes, this will probably start like mid-June. Because, again, our anniversary on NA should be somewhere around the July 4th weekend. That is when Anime Expo occurs over in LA, and that is always where the devs try to host Anniversary. So, with that in mind, since we know the anniversary date, we know everything has to shift before that, so you guys can kind of just reverse engineer the dates of the events based off of that. Now, the reason this one's going to be significant is because this does include Basically, Hibiki and Chikagi, both of which are pretty obscure Type Moon references that a lot of people don't know about. And they're definitely an interesting unit, to say the least. They are going to be yet another limited unit coming to us here in this event. And they are going to be Alter Ego. Now, the big thing to denote is, as you guys can see, they are going to be a quick-based AoE Alter Ego. Now, for those of you guys that know about like Tiamat and stuff, this is the unfortunate nature of things at this point. I can't really say that Hibiki and Chikagi have held up too well because just of the existence of Tiamat. But it doesn't mean that they're a bad unit. You guys can actually see they have the ability to remove all enemies' defensive buffs activating first. And again, same deal. We know that with the likes of Summer Tiamat coming, that's actually going to help out units like this that were maybe kind of on the cusp of being good, but really just kind of lack the proper support to actually be able to do it. There's still somebody that's going to be able to loop. They're still going to be pretty capable, but they're not necessarily going to be like the best of units out there. They're not a unit that you guys have to roll. They will be very useful in their event, but honest to God, I have not really seen or heard of many people using them outside of that. Which tells me a lot, just tells me that they're not people's like go-to in that regard. Again, though, the kit's not bad. It's just pretty pedestrian at this point in time. And when we have, crazy units out there like Tiamat, it's hard to argue for people to like go for this sort of thing unless it's just, absolutely in their wheelhouse and they really like gotta collect them, gotta have them all. That's something. It's like if you really like the obscure Type Moon reference here, feel free to go after Azumi no Isora. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think they're a pretty easy skip for a lot of people, and it's really just going to boil down to what your account is looking like. We do get the return of Waver here for those of you guys that didn't pick him up on his initial ticket or haven't managed to get spooked by him over the years. And you do get the return of, say, Shonagon. There is some interesting C's here, but nothing really that kind of screams, hey, you got to roll me either. So to me, unfortunately, from an efficiency and like meta standpoint, this event's not the best. Obviously, don't play the event entirely based off meta, right? Go for what you want. Try to get the things that that you feel like are going to make you happy playing this game. But it's one of those things where I look at that and go like, okay, the devs could have kind of helped out with that a little bit. Again, we get more Summer Aid participation here. We do get some other campaigns, including Great and Super Success Rate, Bond Points plus 20% for all servants, and basically some summoning campaigns, including the return of some pretty lucrative summer units from the prior year. So you guys are going to get Castoria Berserker, Ace, Melissan Ruler all coming back. And Banner 2 is also going to be some of the older summer units there with Jarcher, Murasaki Rider, Abby Summer, and then summoning campaign number 3 being our eldest, most veteran summer units there with Squirtoria and Tamamo Lancer and Surfmo all kind of being very nice targets. Obviously, some of these units could use some buffs, but most of the ones that I mentioned right there still are holding up pretty well over time. So definitely an interesting one that you guys should pay attention to in that regard. We do get a new Ordeal Call campaign here. This is campaign number 7. Really not too much to talk about with this one. But you guys can see they do have basically limited time 0 AP first time clear for the Bleached Earth quests if you hadn't already done them. We're also going to get Hunting Quests Part 14 in July. So this one may or may not be before or after the anniversary. It just depends on the amount of timing and kind of what they have. I expect stuff like that's probably going to get kicked to after, but it really just depends. And we'll probably have an efficiency guide out for this. You guys can see as far as this one goes, nothing really too much in the way of campaigns. You will get some teapots for clearing hunting quests and some apples. But otherwise, you really want to clear hunting quests in general just because the benefits that they provide. They usually provide you guys with QP. They usually give you, again, experience cards and ascension materials. So your first one up here is going to be Heroic Proofs. Your next one is going to be Gears. The one after that is going to be LB3 reactor cores and octuplet crystals. The one after that is going to be forbidden pages and claws. And then the one after that is going to be the divine spherical vein, as well as homunculus babies. So both of those are a little bit older now at this point. And then after that, you're going to get meteor horseshoes and again the gallstones, basically. So that's going to be your final ones. To me, as someone that's been playing a long time, there's really not a lot here for me to farm in this round of Hunting Quest. But if you're a newer player, Hunting Quests are absolutely fantastic. They're a great way to get yourself some easy experience in Ascension mats. So I do recommend at least kind of paying attention to that. You're then going to get the 9th anniversary download campaign. Like I said, some of this will occur out of order for how we've talked about it. You do have some other campaigns at play here, but really nothing too much to talk about until we get to anniversary proper. So now, early August is when JP had anniversary proper. But again, I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you guys that this will probably occur instead of on August 4th, it will occur on NA on July 4th. So there will be a little bit of a difference there in that regard. That means that month gap, they're going to have to kind of shuffle stuff around. That's why I think things like the Hunting Quest and stuff may occur after rather than before. But we'll just have to see. So, with regards to this, we go ahead and close some of these tabs. So we do have the 9th anniversary, and there's a lot to talk about with 9th Annie, things that you guys need to pay attention to. Right off the bat, let's just go straight to the actual banner itself. This is going to be Summer Space Ereshkigal. Space Ereshkigal was basically Nasu and the devs' apology attempt for kind of not paying any attention to Erish over the years and really just not any attention to Rin. They actually openly admitted this. They said that they had wanted to do a version of her prior to this, but they never really got around to it. This is going to be the next beast unit that we have added to the game. And the difference is if we compare her to the likes of, say, Draco, where Draco is single target, Draco is effective against the 7 base classes. Space Ereshkigal is going to be a little bit different. She is going to be AoE, and she is going to be effective against all the extra classes instead. So each beast class kind of just functions on its own sort of set of rules. So don't expect one to be like the other. But you guys can see the class damage applicability that they have here. And it's a little bit of a difficult thing to understand, but that is kind of what's going on. Keep in mind as well that she also has a unique gimmick with regards to the way that she will gain extra effects. She has a sort of bond gauge that exists in the battle itself, the affection gauge. This can only be leveled up if it is your Space Ereshkigal. So in other words, you cannot use somebody else's Space Ereshkigal and take advantage of this. And there are some really nice benefits to getting higher gauge. Again, I talk about this at length in her analysis video, but just a quick kind of TLDR rundown is you're going to want to get the gauge higher as fast as you can because it's going to just pay dividends. It never goes back down. It will only increase over the duration of the fight until she is dead or the fight is dead. And then for the buffs that she's going to get, she gets things like charge, attack up, NP damage up. She has crit star bomb, absorption, noble phantasm, charge again here. So up to 70% right there between her two skills. She has invincibility for 2 attacks, 3 turns, guts, self-healing, and basically a debuff cleanse, as well as buff removal resistance and cooldown reduction. So all over the place. And definitely an interesting unit. Now, with regards to it, talking about her, she gets additional effects on her Noble Phantasm depending on the level of gauge that you have. So it's why, again, you will probably want to have your own rather than using somebody else's. But admittedly, it's not the end of the world. I have used, friend support space Ereshkigals, and I haven't really felt like, oh man, that sucked or anything like that. You're going to lose out a little bit on damage output and some buffs, but it's not the end of the world. But you can see she does have the ability to increase her own instant kill success rate. She does have the ability to grant herself ignore defense and ignore invincibility, depending on that gauge, and even 50 crit star bomb if the gauge is maxed out when she goes to Noble Phantasm. She deals damage to all enemies, then deals super effective damage that scales based off the affection level. So definitely another reason to do that there. And she will remove offensive buffs from the enemy. So things like Invuln Pierce or Defense Pierce can be stripped off of the enemy, kind of preventing them from carving you up. On top of having a chance to instant kill them. And then her overcharge effect is that it will increase her master affection points. So basically, Ereshkigal is someone that's going to get really strong over time, over multiple turns during the duration of a fight. She is going to get the capability to, realistically speaking, get stronger and stronger and stronger as the fight goes on. I have heard some complaints, and that is that with regards to the fact that she's only effective against extra attacks or extra classes, it doesn't necessarily make her widely applicable. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you guys could see if you look at the chart again, she's basically neutral against everybody else. So it's really not a big deal. You can definitely take her in as a neutral looper and still be effective against her. I don't feel like that one really holds water too much, especially because a lot of the people that are going to roll for her are going to get multiple copies of her and really kind of kit her out and make sure that she's good. Now, if you're just trying to get away with an NP1, there would be some considerations there as to her strength. But I do feel like Space Ereshkigal has held up pretty well over time, just due to the kind of insane amount of utility that she has in her kit. Now, looking at that, is she a unit that you have to have? No, I would say that she's not. I think a lot of the hype when she first came out, everybody kind of rolled her. But I think now looking back on her, she is definitely another kind of luxury unit where if you have her, she's good, but you definitely don't have to have her. And I would say looking at the way that sort of like the Grand Duels and the Part 2 finale transpired on JP, I'm not going to say Space Ereshkigal was the most useful unit in that regard. Certainly with like the extra Grand Duels, you could have used her, but I feel like, especially looking at the finale and stuff, you really like, I'm not going to say she was bad. She certainly wasn't, but it was one of those deals where it's like, I wanted to take other units to some of those fights rather than her. So again, is she good? Is she bad? I think that's going to be a little bit more in the eye of the beholder. I do think she is a good, solid unit regardless, but as to how well she holds up, again, that one will depend on you. I do think she holds up, but I've definitely seen some interesting takes over the years as to the viability of extra classes and, again, sort of where things are at in that regard. Now, taking a look very quickly at the Servant Strengthening quests, obviously every anniversary, that's going to be one of the ones that we get. And this one is big. I'm not going to move completely on from anniversary. We'll go back and touch some other stuff. We do get a buff for Beni Inima that's going to basically increase her arts and NP. We do also get another upgrade for Jilda Ray Saber. That one's going to be pretty nice, at least in terms of helping him be actually usable. You get a much needed buff to Cleo here, really just helping out her charge. Asclepius gets a pretty controversial buff, I would say, on that one. I definitely remember some people saying that they felt like this was actually a nerf somehow to him. My viewpoint is that those are people that are trying to use Asclepius just only as a sacrificial unit, and that's never really how I viewed him. I understand why people do that sort of thing. I get it, but I don't feel like this buff is actually a bad buff for him. I feel like it's actually getting rid of one of the demerits, and the reason people were upset is because they were exploiting that demerit. Taking a look at this, this is actually going to be a big one for Iskandar here on day 3. This is where he's going to finally get charged. So for those of you guys that have your bro Iskandar kind of in the second archive or just haven't really touched him, feel free to dust him off as he'll now work with the Koyanskaya system. And that's kind of terrifying because he's always been something that's been pretty high on damage output. They do also fix Nidochris Assassin's Double Phantasm finally. They reorder the death proc there, so that's really going to help out her usability. Abby gets yet another insane buff. Frankly, I don't know why they keep buffing OG Abby at this point. She's just getting kind of ridiculously strong, and there's no problem with that, but I do find that one kind of hilarious how many upgrades they've kind of given her at this point. They also throw another buff to Billy the Kid at this point, kind of helping out his quick damage and really just kind of amplifying him so he holds up in relation to some of the other 3-star archers. They come in and they give Moriarty on day 5 a Noble Phantasm interlude that actually helps pretty much skyrocket him. He is going to out-damage even Mel Ruler at this point and be just kind of one of the premier arts rulers and just rulers overall for damage output. So it's a really, really nice buff for him. Finally, they fix the RNG aspect of Corday's skill there. And then day 6, you're going to get a much-needed Noble Phantasm interlude for Hokusai, really helping her out. You're going to get a, frankly, buff for red hair that just doesn't do a whole lot and still kind of misses the mark, and I'm not sure what the devs actually want out of red hair at this point. And then day 7, frankly, I still don't get this one. This was an upgrade to Merlin that a lot of people said that he needed, but to me, this one, well, this does help him kind of hang a little bit with the likes of Proto Merlin. This also does upset a little bit of the balance in the Buster category for buffers, as this kind of is going to allow him to eclipse Koyanskaya of Dark pretty handedly in the support aspect of things. Now, while Koyanskaya of Dark still has damage dealing NP that Merlin does not, this one really does help him out quite a bit. And he has had some sneaky good uses since this upgrade. So what this is going to do is it's going to add charge to his invuln skill. So he gets 10% charge to that on top of the 20% charge he has, turning him into a 30% charger and really helping catapult him into some additional extra like buffing and farming usefulness. Obviously, we get a nice buff here for Nursery Rhyme. Again, this one's also going to be solid for her, so they round out pretty strongly. I do feel like this was a fairly solid batch of strengthening quests with maybe some questionable choices, but ultimately they're all just really going to help out the units that they're given to, with only a couple of exceptions. Now, the Stay Night Remastered release commemorative campaign, again, this sort of thing already happened. We are not going to get this, so don't worry too much about that. Going back to Anniversary here, a second summoning campaign will bring about some of your old units there, as well as some of the units that are being buffed at that point in time, including Cagliostro appearing alongside Sherlock Holmes. So definitely some nice stuff. But we do also have some rate-up craft essences, and Flames of Applause is one that I will at least draw your attention to. It's all attack scaling. It is 60% gauge at MLB, which is a little bit of a rare 60% C. Definitely a nice one there. Overcharged by 1 stage for 1 time, and critical damage by 10%. Definitely like both of those in terms of their capability, but admittedly the overcharge is a kind of limited one-off effect as opposed to the critical damage always being there. Still a relatively good C that you guys should be aware of. And this is also a good point to bring up the craft essences that are not on rate up but are new, particularly King of Tsukimihara Academy. Well, this one is split stats. It is basically Ox Demon King for attack up. What this means is that you can put this on anybody, and when they enter the field, everybody else in the party gets attack up for 3 turns, including the unit that it's equipped to. So this is ultimately a very, very nice C. I've been lucky. I've managed to snag like 2 copies of this on JP. It's very good for throwing in your back line, particularly when you consider that things like Ox Demon King have now become available again through the Mana Prism shop to be able to purchase. Combining them just means you have even more backline scalability for making your units stronger if they end up rotating out into the field. Okay, so now we have to talk about 2 more things. One is this is going to be the Lucky Bag GSSR. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time analyzing this one because obviously when it comes to the GSSR, I'm going to end up making a actual video going over every single unit and talking about considerations and like what things I think are good to go after here. There's going to be 17 banners divided by theme. 5-star servants will be random limited servant based off the pools of servants on the banner. Again, you can only choose one pool, so it is what it is. This is as opposed to the GSSR that will be happening next New Year's, where you will be able to choose 2 pools. That is to say, you will get 2 GSSR choices for the first time. That was something that happened as well here on JP, because it is something that they have repeated, but we're not quite to that point on NA just yet. So, again, there will be a 4-star that you will be guaranteed among the limited and story servants. So you'll also get that guaranteed 4-star. And then the 4-star and 3-star servant pools are shared between all banners. So it is random, but you will get one of these in addition to your 5-star. Naturally, there's some really, really good ones. Obviously, if you're a newer player, your focus is probably going to be on either getting a unit that you just sorely crave, or again, units like the support loadout. Honestly, the Fey Roundtable Domain Pavilion one here just looks kind of crazy good. Same thing with the LB7 one down here, depending on who you need. So there's already just some kind of standout ones. Heck, even Summer Pavilion 2 also looking pretty solid, or Summer Pavilion 3. So I'm not going to spend too long talking about this, but needless to say, you will be getting a GSSR at this time. If you guys are on the fence about spending money on the game, I understand. But if you're going to spend any money on FGO, I recommend doing it for something like a GSSR. And the reason why is going to be because you're guaranteed to get an SSR, as well as, again, in this case, a 4-star unit as well from that pool. So it's definitely nice. It's definitely something to consider. But there is another option here, and that is Destiny Order. Every single anniversary, you guys are going to get the Destiny Order campaign. This does not occur at New Year's. This is sort of the addition, as opposed to, again, that New Year's coming up, you will have 2 options to roll. This one, you'll get Lucky Bag and Destiny Order. So you'll still get 2, but they're going to be different. If you've never done a Destiny Order, what you do is basically you're going to cost yourself 30 premium, aka paid courts. So not bonus courts or free courts, but instead paid courts. It's going to cost you 30, but what you're going to do is you're going to be able to select one of every single one of the classes. So you have the 7 base classes and then extra 1 and extra 2. This is really, really, really nice, as it does allow you guys to pick units that you specifically want. What you'll do is you'll slot in the units that you want for each of those classes, and then you'll roll, and it will give you one of those units. So this is sort of a guaranteed way of getting something that you want. I have seen people like complain that you can't like leave a field blank or something, and they got the one thing that they desired the least, but ultimately, to me, that's on them for selecting and putting in something that they couldn't live with getting. Make sure you're solid in your choices and understanding. You can see as you go through to select what the NP level is and whether or not the unit is limited, story locked, or permanent. But every single SSR is available to you guys here. So I do recommend it, including trying to go after, like, say, Draco, who is not available in normal GSSR pools. This is an interesting thing in that regard. So I do also like, again, Destiny Order for you guys. It is functionally a more target-specific GSSR, and I feel like while you do have to pay a little bit more there, it's still a nice thing. And you can do both this and the Lucky Bag, so you don't have to worry about, like, oh, can I only do one of these? No, you're fine. You can do both options once. And just for another thing that I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, during the 9th anniversary, we ended up getting GSSR basically summon improvements, where this is where from now on, or sorry, not GSSR summon improvements, but basically just summon improvements in general. So with your pity system, every single time you guys go into a banner, the first copy is always a pity unit. So that is, or sorry, not the first copy is always going to be covered by pity. That's the correct terminology that I should have used there. After that, trying to roll a second copy or more on that same banner means you're not covered by pity. What this change is at 9th anniversary is it means that now every copy of a unit will have pity associated with it. So that means while the pity is set at roughly 900 quartz or the equivalent of it, basically 300 spins, that means that you're going to have the capability of always being able to get pity. So even if you go for that second copy, that NP2, it will still be covered by a new pity. Each time you roll the unit, the pity counter resets. But this is a much needed improvement, as this is what I think stopped a lot of people from rolling for that second copy or more, because they were sitting there going, hey, look, there's no point. I'm not covered. Why should I, throw caution to the wind and let there be no safety net? Now, I know pity is a contentious topic in FGO. It's set pretty high, and a lot of people really have a lot of strong opinions on it. But to me, I can honest to God look at this and say that this is not a bad thing. At least there is a safety net there for you guys, especially for those of you guys that are trying to get that second copy or more. It's going to be a really beneficial change. So definitely a nice thing to see. It's one that I've been waiting on coming to NA for a long time. On top of that, we also got new append skills, and this was the big one. So this is when the 4th append and 5th append skill are going to come into the game. They are the same across every single unit in the game. So you don't have to worry about variations like there is with the 3rd append. The 4th append skill is going to increase your critical damage up. Do keep in mind, though, there is a cap on critical damage in the game, and it can be reached, and it can nullify the effect of this 4th append. So just be aware that that's a thing with certain loadouts and certain units. But otherwise, this is still a pretty quality append. That being said, the actual game changer here is going to be the 5th append. This skill is fantastic on certain units. This is what's going to allow units the ability to reduce their cooldowns on their skills the first time they're used by up to 1. So this is really, really nice because you're going to get the capability of taking, like, say, a 7-turn charge skill, like, say, with Arcuid, that didn't work under the conventional Koyanskaya setup. And now with the 5th append skill, it will be able to work, allowing her to just be a fluid double support Black Grail looper. So it's really, really nice. And there's going to be a ton of other units that this actually affects. If you want a pretty comprehensive list of that, feel free to go check out my video on the 5th append. I talked about, at the time, all the units that were released that were massively impacted by the 5th append. So you guys can go check that out for, again, a little bit of a primer as to who you should maybe be thinking about getting the 5th append skill on. So wherein is the problem here? Well, unfortunately, when this came out on JP, this was kind of the final nail in the coffin. Players had been annoyed by the coin system for years already. The devs had even come out and commented via Mr. 2 with him saying that they were aware of it and they were working on a fix for the problem. And then they dropped the 4th and the 5th append on us with no fix. In fact, after saying that there would be a fix coming, they actually ignored it in the next interview that they gave and made no mention of it really ever again, and then dropped this on us. So a lot of people were understandably pissed. This actually threw the JP servers into a bit of a riot. It's a very rare thing to see, but basically the devs knew they messed up. And they immediately had to backpedal and deal with it, because the problem at play here, to understand, is that players that had rolled extra copies beyond even the 5th, players that had worked hard just to get, bonded up to get enough coins just to unlock maybe even one append or to get their unit to 120, this was adding increased strain and burden without providing any new sources of coins for the player base. So understandably, players were upset. Now, I've always contended that rolling that extra copy of a unit, like say rolling NP6 of an SSR, not really worth it. I never really felt like the additional like unlocks for your appends was actually worth it, because usually if you look at any unit in the game, one of their appends is just not a big deal and is easily skippable. So trying to like achieve that perfection, I always felt like was a little bit of a trap. But there were certainly a lot of people that tried to do that, and they were understandably upset because they felt like they had perfected their unit, and then the devs threw this out there and unperfected all of their units. So it was basically the equivalent of saying, hey, you haven't rolled enough, please roll more. We need more of your money. It was an absolute cash grab, and like I said, everyone was kind of understandably upset by this premise. So, as we mentioned, the devs backpedal, and they actually end up giving us some really nice quality of life improvements over the next month or two. I'm anticipating those quality of life improvements will come to NA with the 9th anniversary, simultaneously with the release of the 4th and 5th append. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. If they don't, you have the right to get upset as the player. Why? For the exact same reason it was stupid back then. So expect them to drop it on 9th anniversary, or there will be a little bit of hell to pay. So again, basically those upgrades actually fix things. They increase the amount of coins awarded from bonding a unit, making it so that with even one copy of any unit, you can 120 them based off the amount of coins you can get from bond. Simultaneously, they also come in and they make it so that you can move which appends you have around. So let's say you had unlocked the 2nd append, the mana loading append, but you're like, man, I really feel like for this unit, skill reloading is much better, aka the 5th append here. This new system will allow you to switch which append you chose at no cost, no penalty, and it doesn't rely on any currency, so you can immediately switch back too if you want. So you can literally switch the append that you have selected for just one fight if you want, and then switch it back. So it's a really, really nice system. It really helps alleviate the strain and the need for more coins. I really, really do like it. And that's what I've been trying to tell people for a while now. It's like, hey, stop rolling that NP6. There's really just no reason for it. You're not going to get anything out of it in the end because you're going to have the ability to shift this stuff around. So devs do come in and they fix pretty much just about everything wrong with the system, which to me was kind of a sign that the devs always knew how to fix the system, and it sounded more like the monetization guys were saying, no, don't fix it. We're getting money out of this. So I'm not going to blame the devs on that one, but I am going to say that they at least acted quickly and tried to address the issue. So hopefully we will see this again at the same time as it comes out on NA. Sorry for the kind of like long rant there, but that was kind of necessary to address that this will be a situation coming up on NA during our 9th anniversary on July 4th. Now, with this, we're going to move on as we start moving into summer. Now, summer on JP happened really quick on the heels of anniversary. Basically, anniversary ended on the 14th for JP, and then summer started on the 14th. On NA, again, because our anniversary will be about a month early, I wouldn't expect that, but it's possible. They could give us summer kind of on the heels and just shift stuff around more. That will result in a little bit more of a dead latter half of the year if they do that. But it is what it is. Keep in mind, too, that what is also going to be in conjunction with summer is, on top of the summer event, you'll be getting Ordeal Call 3. It is tied into the summer event, but it is not the summer event. So once they kind of start us on the summer event, they have to also give us Ordeal Call 3 within that same time period. So that is food for thought, as even though we are past the anniversary at this point, some of the stuff still could come earlier due to a shift for things like Thanksgiving, or it could simply be a case if it gets a little bit delayed, but still paired with, Ordeal Call 3 and summer together, because they can't really be separated. Now, talking about Summer here, there are a lot of units that we're going to have to talk about. So this event, as we mentioned, timing is going to be a little bit in the ether. We'll just have to see where things are going. We can get a game update. That's a strengthening quest to Artoria Ruler. This one's actually a really, really, really nice upgrade for her. It helps her out in terms of her buffing capability. It wasn't exactly what I wanted to see for her because I definitely wanted to see them address some of the clunkiness of her kit, but it's still really, really good in terms of making her into a more of a generalistic support rather than just a crit support. So definitely interesting there. And we also get a much needed NP interlude for Tomoe Gozen Saber. Unfortunately, she still needs a little bit more, in my opinion, but that one definitely helped out her damage output and did give her arts performance of 3 turns, which is something she sorely needed in her kit. Ishtar Rider also gets an upgrade to her invincibility skill, kind of just basically giving her even more NP gen and charge, something that she actually kind of needed in order to be able to loop, so it does make her a much more usable unit. Taking a look at the summoning campaigns, starting off right off the bat here, we have Mysterious Executor Seal. Now, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't say that if there's any unit upcoming this next year that you guys should strongly consider rolling on, it is Seal. She is not a gotta-have unit, but Seal is so ridiculously strong that the devs actually, for a period after her release, had a hard time making her not be the solution for a node. To understand why that's the case, again, you can go watch my video on any of these units for a little bit more in-depth understanding. But Seal is the equivalent of almost like old school Jalter used to be, where, yeah, she dealt NP damage, but the real power was in the crits. The exact same thing with Seal. The difference is, 1, Seal is stronger, and 2, Seal has the ability to actually card lock for herself. And that's kind of disgustingly good. So, how does that work? Well, real quick here, just kind of look at her kit. She charges her own NP gauge 10% every turn for 5 turns. She recovers her own HP every turn for 5 turns by up to 1,500. She increases her own debuff resistance for 5 turns by 50%, and increases her own buff removal resistance for 5 turns by 100%. So you're not buff stripping her. She's kind of unstoppable due to all of this kind of just feeding back into her. Now we look at skill 2. She gets Arts and Buster up for 3 turns at 30% each, and a debuff on attack for 3 turns that whenever she attacks with an Arts card, it'll inflict healing received down to an enemy, and has a 30% chance to drain them, and removes their gut status. Also, she will grant herself a buff on attack that will charge her own NP gauge by 10% whenever she attacks with a Buster card. It will grant herself critical damage up, which activates if her own HP is 50% or higher for 3 turns. And then grants herself critical damage up, which activates if her own HP is 100% for 3 turns. So at minimum, you're going to get nothing. Over 50%, you're going to get 50. And if your HP is actually at cap, you're going to get another 50, making it 100% extra crit damage there. It's a pretty disgustingly good skill. And we still haven't even gotten to the most broken aspect of Seal. The third skill. This is going to, for 1 time 1 turn, get rid of everybody else's command cards. You will only receive all 5 of Seal's command cards. This means she just has a full deck. Now, on some hand, that can be a little bit restrictive for how you can handle things, but on the other hand, you don't care. Seal's carding and critting power is so strong that you're just going to be able to card enemies down. I still remember chuckling to myself because I remember when I was playing around with her during the event, somebody came into my stream and tried to tell me that that just wouldn't be a thing outside of the event. And I kind of had my nice little chortle there and said, like, yeah, of course. Whatever, bro. Because I knew already, based off the sheer strength of this, that this was going to be something that was going to be a major problem for the devs. And it ended up being the case. You now had a unit that took away card RNG. It randomly deals 5 new command cards, but they're all seals because they can't do anyone else's. And it does reset the deck because of that. It's also going to charge your own gauge by 50%. It's also going to increase your own defense for 3 attacks for 3 turns. How much defense, you ask? 100%. So, good luck actually killing Seal. It's going to grant herself a buff on defense for 3 times 3 turns as well that recovers her own HP by 2,000 when she takes an attack. Even if you manage to damage her, she's still healing per turn and still healing per attack and still has 100% defense to just mitigate it all. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, honestly. And all of this is on a 6-turn cooldown, which means when you run her with Koyanskayas, yeah, that means in a 3-turn setup, you're selecting Seal's cards twice. So 2 of the 3 turns, you're just going to have all of her cards. It gets kind of broken, especially if you know how to weave a single target NP to kind of stagger enemies even in an AoE wave. That's the thing. I think a lot of people thought, like, oh, she's not going to be able to handle AoE waves. And it's like, yeah, you can, because you can just stagger cards. Oh, if that weren't enough, she also has a special unique passive that basically just grants herself attack advantage against the Saber class. It's semi-effective. It's not full 2 times effectiveness, but considering that Seal is a Moon Cancer, she's functionally an archer, which is probably what she originally should have been regardless. Her Noble Phantasm ignores evasion, ignores defense, deals damage to one enemy, and then deals super effective damage against demonic enemies, one of the most common enemies to encounter in a farming scenario. Has a 100% chance to instant kill enemies, and which isn't guaranteed, by the way, and charges her own NP gauge by 20% after the fact as if she's a Saberface. She increases her own NP damage for 1 turn, activating first by a base of 30% that scales upwards to 60% at 500% overcharge. Yeah, Seal's kind of dumb. She does a lot of damage output. I've had many people ask me, like, how many NP levels do you need to be effective with Seal? Truth is, you can be effective with Seal at NP 1. A lot of that firepower, as we already mentioned, is going to be in the cards. Her NP damage is still pretty solid. If you're worried about, like, taking out a wave and having enough there, NP2 is probably that sweet part, that sweet point where you'll probably be able to kill just about anything with an NP2 Seal. No, I'm not really kidding. Like I said, she is that much of a problem in this game that the devs had a hard time creating nodes to be able to farm where you couldn't just take Seal in and win immediately. And even still, to that degree, you could still do that in most nodes that they come out with now. They just finally came out with 1 or 2 of them where it's like, you can't just use Seal. So, yeah, she is a very, very strong unit, and a unit that all of you should consider rolling. Whether or not you actually do, that's up to you. But again, fantastic unit. Dobrynya is going to be our next up unit here for this summer. And she is a single target arts lancer now. So very interesting because she's going to sit there and loop. She's going to NP seal them for 1 turn and further reduce arts resistance, meaning she can kind of stack. She's also going to be power modly effective against Earth attribute here with her Noble Phantasm by 30%. It's not the strongest. I would maybe like to see that get a little bit of a tweak, but honestly, she's actually a pretty darn effective unit, especially if you plan on going hard in the paint for Seal and get multiple copies of her. She does have charge and arts up in her kit, and she does have the ability to increase her own damage against dragon enemies for 3 turns by a 50% power mod there. Remember, power mods affect not just Noble Phantasm damage, but also any damage. Definitely a nice benefit to her in that regard. She increases her own attack by 20% for 3 turns on waterside battlefield, critical damage, and defense as well. And her 3rd skill is going to charge her own gauge every single turn, as well as increase her NP rate and heals per turn, as well as stars. So Altogether, she's a pretty synergistic unit, and she does what she needs to do. Her big issue here is going to be that she doesn't actually have really anything in the way of survivability. She's an entirely offensive unit, and that's just really going to be what you go after her for. Now, you will have other considerations, as we already mentioned. Nagao Kagetora will have a buff and will be available via the Evocation Festival. So you don't necessarily have to go after someone like Nikitich, but hey, why not if you're already going to be rolling for Seal? Shufu Avenger is going to be the other unit alongside her, and this is another interesting one. Shufu has Arts and Buster up for 3 turns, NP gauge up of 30%. She has party charge of 10%, and basically charges the party's gauge every turn for 3 turns there, on top of the 10% base that she gives, as well as NP damage up, NP overcharge up. And then will increase her own instant kill success rate for 3 turns, as well as her own NP damage on the 3rd one, and increase by a power mod of 20% damage against enemies with a poison, curse, or burn status, and that can stack. Now, to me, honest to God, Shufu Avenger, not that strong of a unit. She's single target, she's Buster. You can certainly go after her. But we have other units from prior years that will also be available around this time on banners. I don't know that she's the best pickup, but again, same deal. It's like if you're going to roll for Seal, I don't really see any bad side for getting her. She's super effective against Mad Attribute with her Noble Phantasm, and she has a chance to instant kill on her NP, which will, if it does succeed, increase the party's attack by 20% for 3 turns. That being said, instant kill is kind of a meme. I don't think you can regularly rely on that sort of tactic. So to me, she's a little bit of an odd duck here, especially given the cooldowns for her skills being such in the way that you would kind of have to sell out in order to be able to operate with her as your single target. Now, as for the CEs on this banner, With the Moon's actually another pretty interesting one. This one's going to be all attack scaling. It's going to be 15% arts up, 15% NP damage, and 20% NP generation rate at MLB. So if you guys ever missed out on Sign of a Smiling Face or Royal Icing, With the Moon is a pretty close equivalent to those CEs. And this one, with it all being all attack scaling and available as a summer CE, it will be one that you guys can pretty easily get your hands on, assuming you are rolling. So it's definitely one that you guys will want to watch out for. Okay. Again, there will be rerun banners as well for some of your older units, as we already mentioned. And there will be the archetype Inception, which is aka Ordeal Call 3, sort of launch banner. Now, we'll talk about Ordeal Call 3 here in a minute, but BB Dubai is going to be the unit that's coming in as sort of the second round of banners on on NA at that point for summer. Now, BB Dubai is another interesting one. She is an AoE arts support Moon Cancer. What do I mean? Well, she's both support and arts, and it really depends on how you use her. There's different stages that will apply different traits. There's an interesting deck there, and she does have a little bit of peculiarities when it comes to her kit. So starting off with the first skill here, she increases the party's darts performance for 3 turns, charges the party's NP gauge by up to 20%, and grants the party preservation target buff except for herself for 3 turns. She will increase the NP damage of Moon Cancer or living human allies and the NP generation of Moon Cancer or living human allies, both for 3 turns, 30% each. Her second skill will remove all enemies' buffs. Definitely a nice effect to have, assuming, again, those buffs aren't bolted down by a white box that's going to prevent their removal. But it will also reduce their attack for 1 turn by a whopping 100%. Now, If they have steroids, this can still allow the enemy to deal some damage, but this will drastically reduce the amount of like forward firepower that a unit has coming at you. Just bear in mind, if they are debuff immune or attack down immune somehow, this will not come into play. It will reduce their art's resistance for 3 turns by 20% and inflict non-preservation target debuff to those enemies. It will increase the critical star generation rate and critical damage generation rate of Moon Cancer living human allies for 3 turns, basically by a nice amount. And then our third skill is going to reduce her own skill cooldown by 1, charge her own gauge by up to 50%, and then select which type of Noble Phantasm she would like to use for the next 3 turns. Now, again, you guys can go check out my video on her for the specifics of that one, but let's quickly talk about basically some of her additional effects. She has some pretty interesting passives as she increases her own attack against enemies with evil alignment and basically increases her own defense against enemies with lawful alignment. Her Noble Phantasm, in its AoE capacity, is a 5-hit AoE Arts NP. It's going to increase damage against enemies with Sky and Star attribute by 30% as a power mod for 1 turn before damage output. She's going to deal damage to all enemies and then reduce their Arts resistance by 20% for 3 turns after the damage goes out. She will also deal extra damage to enemies with the non-preservation target status that is super effective. Considering this is a trait buff and it's something that she applies to enemies with that skill, yeah, it's just a free damage modifier type skill on a 6-turn cooldown. That's really, really nice. Taking a look at her support NP. So this is going to be if you choose the support NP. Instead, it is an art support NP. It will grant the party invincibility for 1 turn. It will grant the party debuff immunity for 1 turn. And it will increase the party's NP damage for 3 turns. To me, I would have liked to have seen multi-turn duration here, but hey, you can't really argue with a unit that can be both an AoE nuker for you and a support on a whim, because she can change back and forth, unlike the likes of, say, like Melisande. So this is a really beneficial thing for her, as it does mean if you find yourself in a tight spot, you can choose to turtle for a little bit with dropping her into a support loadout. It's also going to charge the NP gauge of allies that have the preservation target status except for herself by a base of 30%. There's definitely another nice effect there, as this turns her into almost a like pseudo Tamamo there, just minus the ability to like heal and cooldown reduce for the party. So still really, really a nice and interesting effect. Now, is BB Dubai somebody that holds up well over time? In my opinion, yes. Yeah, I actually feel like she's really, really solid for that flexibility that we talked about earlier with her Noble Phantasm. Her damage output's pretty solid. It's not the best out there by any stretch of the imagination, but her refund numbers are good. She has pretty decent charge, and she has all the capabilities in her kit to kind of delay damage coming to the party and protect the party when necessary in a pinch, on top of still being the devoted damage dealer if she needs to be. So I actually do really like her. I think she fits well into hybridized systems, into single damage dealer systems, and anywhere in between. So to me, yes, BB Dubai, a fantastic unit. Not a unit you have to have, but definitely a decent pickup for a lot of people. Next up here, we've got Tenochtitlan, aka the city, Moon Cancer version. So this is going to be her summer version. She is going to be, again, a Moon Cancer. She's going to be quick. She's going to be AoE. She's going to ignore invincibility for 1 turn and deal super effective damage against super large enemies, which is kind of ironic given her other form, and increase her own damage or her own MP damage for 1 turn. To me, she's a little bit of a clunky unit, though. She's going to charge the party's gauge by 20% with her first skill, recover the party's HP every turn for 3 turns by up to 1,000, increase the party's attack for 3 turns, and then basically end up, as we come to the second skill here, have a taunt skill that will also increase her own defense by a whopping 50% for 3 turns, and grant herself a buff on defense that increases her own NP damage when taking an attack. She's going to be way more of a unit that's optimized for challenge scenarios and less one that's going to be like your fluid looper for farming. She's going to increase her own quick and buster performance for 3 turns, grant herself evasion for 1 turn, and then increase the critical damage of bunny servant allies for 3 turns, as well as reducing their cooldown. So it's definitely an interesting and odd pairing if you want to see who bunny servants include, more than you actually would otherwise believe. So there is quite a bit there. But yeah, to me, she's just kind of a very niche unit. She's a very challenge-oriented unit. She's definitely not a gotta have unless you just love Tenochtitlan in that regard. So if you're going after Tlaloc, feel free to. But yeah, to me, I'm gonna say this is the epitome of, again, a unit you really just don't have to have. Next up, we have Mysterious Heroine Double X Altar. Now, Double X Altar is another interesting one. To me, they got a little bit stale with the design on this one, as it was pretty clear that they were trying to do a buster form of Double X, but it's an interesting one. She does have a gorilla deck. She's single target buster foreigner here, and she does have a 7-hit NP that increases her own damage against lawful and good alignment enemies by a 30% power mod for 1 turn each before damage goes out. She deals damage to one enemy, and then she deals 200% super effective extra damage to ruler class servant enemies. So she does at least have that niche. She's also going to charge her own gauge by 20% on the back end of her NP, and then increase her own NP damage by a base of 10% activating first. She's a very serviceable unit, still a little bit clunky. She has invincibility for 2 times 3 turns, increases her own attack for 3 turns, grants herself critical stars every turn for 3 turns, and gains critical stars on the use of that first skill. Her second skill increases her own buster performance for 3 turns, increases her own critical star absorption for those buster cards by 500%, and then increases her own critical damage for 3 turns by 30% as well. And her third skill is going to be an AoE drain, as well as a charge to her own gauge of 10% based off the number of enemies. In a similar way, where I found this a really weird thing when they did it with How basically, I often found that this is just an odd way to handle a charge skill on a unit that is single target. So naturally, you want to be fighting a single boss enemy if you're going to take her, not necessarily a bunch of enemies as a single target unit. So this skill gets better depending on the more enemies you're facing, but the unit is optimized to face less enemies. It's also going to, again, charge her own gauge by a base of 20% and increase her own NP generation rate by 30% for 3 turns on a buster unit. So a little bit weird, especially for a unit that has a gorilla deck. Certainly usable, though. Damage is not bad and absolutely capable of being that stand-in for someone like Double X if you just need that single target foreigner nuker for getting rid of, say, those pesky pretender bosses that you might encounter. Still, at the end of the day, not a gotta have either. Obviously, I'm a Saberface fan, so I'm a little bit biased in that regard. But just shooting you guys straight, she is still a pretty clunky unit and definitely not a unit that you have to have. So I think this kind of second banner here is a little bit more up in the air, going to be depending on whether or not you really just want one of these units, particularly BB Dubai. That's going to be that primary attraction there. There will be the male craft essences here, including Bright Blue, which does give all attack scaling, invincibility, and NP damage and critical damage as another consideration for your CEs. But ultimately, nothing too much to write home about. With regards to the new Cs not on rate up, there is some potential for Paradise of Ecstasy, as it is a more specialized form of Demonic Bodice Vada that we had from back in the day. It's all attack scaling, starting gauge of 50%, overcharge the NP of 2 stage 1 time, but then arts up. So you don't get that odd 60%, but you trade that for some more damage and all attack scaling that the original CE did not have. And then as we go to talk about Archetype Inception, keep in mind, again, that it will coincide with the release of the second banner for summer, but that will be a little bit delayed because the summer event comes out 2 weeks prior to that. That being said, it will release in 3 waves, so you're actually going to kind of get stalled out and not have the capability of finishing Ordeal Call 3 right away due to artificial time gates that you just kind of put in. They really didn't need to do that, but they kind of wanted to drag it out and pad for time. So it's understandable as to why they did. But what should we consider with the Ordeal Call 3 release? Well, for starters, there is some quality of life here. I don't think you have to worry about it too much. It is a Kiara animation update. And we do get a strengthening to King Protea that's actually just going to help her skill cooldown time, and realistically speaking, increases her own buff removal resistance and charges her in P gauge with this skill. So it's a really, really nice upgrade for her in that regard. Kiara is going to get a buff to what was already one of her most broken skills already, as it's going to remove the demerit of dealing damage on her 3rd skill. It's going to increase the party's damage against good alignment enemies for 3 turns, charge the parties in P gauge, and overcharge the parties in P stage by 1 time for 3 turns. So yeah, it's just kind of a dumb ability in terms of it just really helps out her already ridiculously good utility. Again, the summoning campaigns were the ones that we already talked about. The return of Coin Sky of Dark, King Protea, Astolfo Saber, Janako, and some other units here that are maybe a little bit rare. And the 3rd summoning campaign is going to be the return of Archetype Earth. So if you haven't had the opportunity to snag an Arcuid prior to this point, especially with that 5th append coming into the game, this would be your next opportunity to grab one. Now, same deal here. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention what is supposed to be the summer welfare. Unfortunately, the summer welfare is not actually given to you until you beat Archetype Inception. That is to say, the welfare unit you're supposed to get from summer is not handed to you until you beat Ordeal Call 3. And given the time locks that are going to be at play, you're not going to actually be able to beat Ordeal Call 3 until, at least on JP, what was September 20th. On NA, this may be a little bit sooner. We'll just have to see. But that's going to allow you to pick one of the Hakunos. Now, it's going to be a really interesting thing with them because the way they are going to work is going to be that you must pick one of the two, either the male or the female form. They both have the exact same kit. The only thing that differs is the appearance. But they both do count as a separate unit, similar to the way Mecha Ellie works. The difference is you will only get one of them upon completion of Ordeal Call 3. You will have to choose them, and you will not be guaranteed to get the other version until later when they make Ordeal Call 3 into a main interlude. Now, it's possible this could happen earlier on NA than it did on JP, but I wouldn't count on it because the devs definitely need to pad and stall for time. So, looking at the kit here, just real quick, there's a couple of things to consider. I actually don't feel like the Hakunos are overall that strong of a unit. They are a Moon Cancer, and they are an AoE one. The big claim to fame that they are going to have is that they are the first unit ever in the game to ignore anti-purge defense. That is to say, they can pierce solemn defense. That buff that y'all have been relying on with Castoria, yep, this is the unit that breaks that. So it is interesting. The exception is that while it will pierce solemn defense and invincibility, it will not pierce evasion. So you do have a counter to it if you use evasion-based units. Again, you have a counter to Hakuno's NP. Why I'm saying that, I don't know. Choice is yours. But There will be a chance to stun them as well on the overcharge effect, but still, as long as you avoid the MP, you're good. For the active skills, this one's kind of one of the nuttier skills in the game, and I've used it myself to very hilarious effects. Because this first skill can only be used when their own NP gauge is 10% or higher. It will drain their NP gauge. When there are fewer than 50 critical stars, it will gain critical stars. It will also randomly deal 5 new cards. So it is a shuffle skill, and it will reset the deck so that this becomes the first turn of the new card cycle. What's the catch? Well, look at the cooldown of this skill at rank 10. Oh yeah. So, if you choose to charge Hakunos with a external support, if you choose to equip them with a CE that gives them charge, they are a finite but extremely repetitive card shuffling unit. If nothing else, you can just slot them in the party and go, hey, I don't like those cards. I'm going to bring them in, and I'm just going to keep shuffling until I get the cards that I want. And this actually is the strategy that I used for crit farming the extra 1 boss for the Grand Duels, and it actually worked hilariously so. So, yeah, it's a spammable skill, and really kind of ridiculous. The second skill increases own quick arts and bust performance of 30% each for 3 turns. So when that's not in play, you're a little bit of a lame duck, but still really nice. It's going to grant a buff on attack for 2 times 3 turns that will grant evasion for 1 turn when you attack with a quick card. It will charge the NP gauge by 20% when you normal attack with an arts card. And it will increase critical damage by 20% for 3 turns when attacking with buster cards that will activate before the card damage goes out. The third skill will allow you to select one of the options below, which just increases your own damage against enemies with Sky, Earth, or Man attribute, as well as charging your own NP gauge by up to 30% and gaining 10 critical stars every turn for 3 turns. What does that mean? That means you literally have them as a star producer, especially based off the first skill, and you also, within their own kit, have the ability to give them 30% more charge to allow them to reshuffle their cards, again, 3 more times. So it's kind of hilarious. If you're worried about knowing whether or not your enemy is Sky, Earth, or Man attribute, by the time Hakuno comes into the game, there is a quality of life that on inspection of an enemy, if you hold down on top of them on the screen, you will be able to see in the corner what type of attribute they have of the major actual attributes. Not their traits, mind you, but the actual major grouping of Sky, Earth, Man, Star, or Beast attribute. You'll be able to see which one they are. So this will allow you to optimize Hakuno against the enemy that they are facing, and definitely fantastic in that regard. So don't sleep on Hakuno, a very sneakily good utility unit that can provide you with a lot of solutions to, shall we say, modern problems. And again, you will have to make a choice between the 2 of them, and you will not be able to get the other one until the main interlude for Ordeal Call 3 comes out much later. As we move on into September, you do have the Lost Belt 4 clear support campaign. They're just trying to get people, through story in order to get stuff done. Your Ordeal Call 3 participation support campaign. This is basically just saying, like, hey, we're going to give you guys teapots, crystallized lore, bond grails, and stuff if you guys have done the story. Make sure you guys are staying up to date on that and actually managing to get through this stuff. And then, as we mentioned before, there will be kind of chapter releases to Ordeal Call 3. There will be 3 parts: the initial part, the second part, and then the third part. And the third part will be coming to you roughly around September 20th. That'll be the earliest, as we already mentioned, that you guys can get, again, your Hakuno as a permanent unit. Looking at the Kill Moth banner here, it's a Sendo Riku banner with some older CEs coming back. Nothing too significant. Just understand that usually the Killmoth banner on NA turns into a back-to-school campaign. Worthy of consideration there for you guys, even though we won't actually get Killmoth. We've got the Lost Belt 5 clear support campaign, and the one you've all been waiting for, the 30 million downloads campaign in early October. Now, again, this could be basically late August for us, but looking at this one's significant. Why? Because this one is going to bring back another SSR selector ticket. Your requirement is going to be to clear Orleans, and you're going to have the capability of keeping the unit as long as you reach level 60 on the unit and bond 5. This is going to be significant. The only big thing that I can say is that the unit you select here will not give you a USO, so keep that in mind. Don't try to use this for USO farming. But basically, all of your permanent and story-locked units are available in this one. So there's quite a bit here. I'll end up making another video talking about this. I believe I did when it came out on JP, but obviously we'll need to revise for modern considerations. But still, there's a lot of good options here in the same way that past selector tickets have afforded people options for either grabbing a support they didn't have, shoring up a damage dealer, getting additional coins, or again, just trying to acquire a rare or hard to get unit that you don't necessarily want to roll for. So there's a lot to be considered in that regard that can really, really help you out. There will be login bonuses and refreshes of the DaVinci Workshop. You will have missions that will grant you some additional stuff, including, again, these tickets that will allow you guys to actually be able to refresh the Pure Prism shop. You'll be able to select one item from the Pure Prism shop and refresh it, allowing you to buy additional stuff from that. So let's say you had purchased all of the Meteor Shards from the Pure Prism shop. You can get the ticket, and you can refresh it, and you can get the full amount back again, which you will still have to buy with more Pure Prisms, but it makes it available again. Here's the kicker. You can only refresh an item one time. So unfortunately, you can't just sit there refreshing those Meteor Shards over and over and over again. Which is unfortunate, because I would love to do that on my account, but it is what it is. But still, you'll get a couple of these every now and then. They've managed to give out, I want to say roughly 10 of these on JP at this point in time. So they're not super common, but you definitely want to make sure you guys get as many of them as you can if you're somebody that really likes to make the most out of the Pure Prism shop. Obviously, there's going to be quartz given out for some of these missions. There will be a reward command code for completing them all that's going to increase damage against enemies with lawful alignment and NP generation rate of the engraved card. You will get a friend list update that's going to increase the cap, basically. And as we already mentioned, the Pure Prism update here will make all main story map quests now reward twice the amount of Pure Prism. So you're going to get a nice influx of them at this point. If you didn't, like say you had already used them all, you'll get another big boon depending on the amount of quests you've completed. If you haven't completed them all, don't worry. It's just going to be a permanent update that will increase the amount of rewards. So when you do complete story chapters, you'll still get more. And again, this is the new reset system for the Pure Prism Exchange shop with the tickets, as we already mentioned, coming in. So it's definitely a much welcome thing. You're also going to get Stargazer's teapots added to the Mana Prism shop on monthly reset, as well as, again, some past command codes becoming available and past sort of Mana Prism shop seas becoming available once again. Plus, the Remember Essences will be adding some older ones, though admittedly the big one here is going to be Ox Demon King. All of this, again, happening early October, or again, maybe as early as late August. For your summoning campaign, again, this one's worth mentioning. Oberon will be returning as a unit on this banner. So for those of you guys that are trying to get your hands on him because you need him to fill out your support loadout, this is going to be one of those ways that you guys can do so. And again, there will be past units available with their CEs from things like Anniversary and New Year's. So you will have opportunities to roll Castoria yet again, Scotty, and various others here that may be worthy of your attention, depending on your account's needs. So the 30 million downloads campaign, going to be absolutely a fantastic time for everybody with the Servant Selector and Mana Prism / Pure Prism shop changes. Next up, we're going to end up having the Fairy Sugoroku event coming to us basically mid-October. Again, this may be early October, depending on the timing of the 30 million downloads campaign. Remember, download campaigns also can move around depending on how things work. For Fairy Sugoroku, this one is going to be your Kazura drop event. Just very quickly looking at the game updates here, we can see that we're going to get an upgrade for Yagyu, a much-needed Noble Phantasm interlude. And hilariously enough, Emiya is going to get an upgrade to his evasion that's going to increase his own attack, increase his own defense, and gain critical stars. And Geronimo is finally going to get a skill upgrade that will increase one ally's quick performance for 1 turn and reduce their skill cooldown by 1. Admittedly, this is not quite good enough to really call him a quick support. It can certainly be used, but, you know, would have liked to see maybe somebody more along the lines of like Shu Fu as a low star quick support. Melt is going to get just frankly the kind of crazy Noble Phantasm interlude at this point. And this is really going to rock the socks off of just about everybody in the cavalry triangle of units that's single target, as this is just going to make Melt really ridiculously outscale just about everybody. I've seen, you know, subsequent things where people have questioned why certain units got buffs, particularly Kama, for instance. The reason Kama got a buff is because that Melt buff is pretty ridiculous, honestly. So it's really going to help out her damage output, just really, really make her kind of insane, as it's going to allow her to remove one enemy's buffs activating first, and also increase her own quick performance for 3 turns, and still upgrade the amount of damage output on top of that. So it really does just absolutely catapult her in terms of capability. Taking a look at the summoning campaign here, there's going to be a friend point summoning campaign. This will allow you to summon more of the Hakuno that you have already selected, but not the one that you haven't. This is a good time if you want to acquire like NP5 to roll out your FP. So I do recommend saving some for that. And you will also have a Melt summoning campaign with Wang Fei Hu. Now, let's talk about the actual summoning campaign for this. The CE available here is going to be more than any gemstones in the world. This one at MLB featuring Koyanskaya is going to be all attack scaling, buster up of 15% at MLB, increasing NP damage by 10%, and overcharging the NP by 2 stages 1 time. Again, overcharge on a CE is a limited effect, so it's not really a great thing to have, but still a pretty quality CE, especially if you're just looking for some kind of one-shot potential, but need, again, some carding capability as well. Now, taking a look at Kazura drop on this, she's going to be paired alongside Emiya, Geronimo, and Yagyu, who himself is story locked. But Kazura drop's going to be an interesting unit for a lot of reasons. Kind of comes into the game at a little bit of a weird point. She is coming into a quick system that sorely needs some additional options, and she is providing a little bit of that. She's not going to be the savior of Quick by any means. She's not going to be a replacement for Scotty. She can function pretty interesting. Her primary gimmick and what she's really going to be known for is the ability to charge her own gauge by 50%, but then further charge her own gauge based off the number of Sakura series units on the field, except for herself. This includes allies and enemies. And if they're not a Sakura unit on the field, she can reduce cooldowns by 1 for herself. That's going to be her major claim to fame. It's really going to help out her capability. She's going to reduce all enemies' defense for 3 turns on her NP with the overcharge effect, deal damage to them, reduce their attack by 20%, and have a 40% chance to stun them, kind of locking them down. Same deal in stage 3, it's just a different form. Now, the first skill, though, is also worthy of understanding, because the way this skill works, and again, I do talk about it during her video, is that's going to reduce all enemies' NP charge by 1, increase their own debuff success rate, increase Khazra Drop's own debuff success rate by 30% for 3 turns, and grant herself a buff regeneration that activates at the start of a player turn for 2 times. What does that do? At the start of a player turn, it will inflict quick resist down every turn for 1 turn to all enemies. So that is going to be by 50%. That's interesting because this is basically a debuff that will travel wave to wave with her instead of just being a one-off thing due to the delayed effect. Especially since this occurs at the start of the player turn, not at the end of the player turn. That is going to be especially useful when you're moving between waves. It will also inflict critical attack resistance down every turn for 1 turn to them, and reduce their critical attack resistance and reduce all enemies' quick resistance for 1 turn whenever the skill is activated. Let me help you guys understand this. The critical attack resist regen, aka the critical attack resistance down, means that the enemy will take more crit damage if that is on them. So it's, again, gonna kind of increase your firepower should you manage to crit. Her being a quick unit, she will have stars abound if she's kind of running through her Noble Phantasm. And again, if you're pairing her up with the likes of, say, like Summer Scotty or somebody that has a Star Bomb or stars per turn. But admittedly, her best pairing at this point is probably going to be Summer Tiamat, just due to the quick and art synergy that's going on there. So I found in a lot of ways that Khazra Drop has often been an overhyped unit. She is certainly not bad and is very capable, but I have seen people trying to say that she is like literally a like Scotty replacement, and no, unfortunately, she's not. She doesn't have the party support for that sort of thing to be the case. But she is still a quality unit and can still be a very effective damage dealer for you guys, especially because one of the big things that you guys are going to see is that she increases her own damage against Sakura series enemies by 30% with her passive, as well as increasing her own damage against same class enemies as her own by 75%. The only things that this excludes is Shielder and Beast. What does that mean? Literally any class that she kind of pairs up against, she's going to deal extra damage. So she kind of is a little bit of a berserker in that regard and going to be able to deal effective damage because her third skill changes her own class to the targeted enemy for 3 turns. So she just pairs up as the same class of an enemy and then deals 75% extra damage to them. Now, admittedly, this is not a whole lot, but it's still something. So it is an interesting skill nonetheless, and it does make her a pretty effective sort of like neutral looper, if you will. Now, do you have to have Khazra Drop? No. Does Khazra Drop hold up well? Yes. Especially, again, as we already mentioned, with Summer Tiamat coming into the game that will pair up with her nigh perfectly. So it is an interesting thing nonetheless to see that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, whether or not you go for her is going to be your choice. We will have the autumn enhancement campaign here. Nothing too much to write home about. It's more of a, hey, please complete your story. Hey, please do this other stuff. And then a great and super success rate for just the following servants. It's basically a cleverly designed please clear the main story campaign. And then from there, we move into November. Now, you will have the Lost Belt 6 clear support campaign, where you will again get banners for some of the Lost Belt 6 units, including Morgan Le Fay and Melisande. So definitely another interesting banner there that you guys should pay attention to. From there, we go into the Mystery House Crafters event. And this one's significant because it's going to include yet another welfare that we frankly have not gotten very many of this year at this point. So it's definitely one to consider here. And we also are going to have Tutankhamun. So let's start out by looking at the game updates. Where Asterios gets his battle animation update. Britommart's going to get a much needed NP interlude to really help out her damage. It's basically going to help her reduce all enemies' quick resistance for 3 turns, reduce their buster resistance for 3 turns, deal extra damage, and then again give the extra damage to Rider enemies on overcharge. Super Bunyan also going to get a much needed NP interlude thanks to Melt basically killing Super Bunyan and leaving them for dead in the side of a ditch somewhere. So this really helps Super Bunyan at least kind of hold up in the face of Melt's damage numbers. But still, unfortunately, Melt does have a lot of utility with that buff strip capability now. So to me, in a weird way, you could almost still buff Super Bunyan again in the face of someone like Melt. The advantage that Super Bunyan's going to have, Super Bunyan's Buster, and is going to be able to kind of work in a precise system due to that. And then Van Gogh getting an upgrade to her attack there, basically granting a new effect that will help her if she successfully removes the curse debuff when attacking with her quick cards. It will charge her own NP gauge as a new effect there. So again, Van Gogh having curse control and being able to manipulate it around, being able to remove it from an enemy, now gets her charge on that attack. So really, really nice for her in terms of getting her to another Noble Phantasm cleanly. Chat, why don't we go ahead and stop here? Because otherwise I'm going to get caught literally in the middle of a unit. Plus, my voice is beginning to die. So we will pick this one up tomorrow. So if you guys want to see kind of the tail end of banner review here, it shouldn't take us too much longer, but realistically speaking, there is just a little bit more. But I will also kind of cover a little bit in January as well, because unfortunately we didn't get to cover January of this year, and I figured the same thing keeps happening every year. So I'll go ahead and move through a lot of this. Surprisingly fast? Yeah, it does admittedly go way faster when you only cover the new stuff. Okay. Let me see if there is anybody on tonight. Chat, I'm going to send you guys over to Mr. Gotcha Gurus. He is playing some Silver Palace. I believe that's a new game. And I will be back tomorrow. Invalid username. Oh, right. There's no dash. Two minutes to reset. Yep. Make sure you guys are doing whatever it is you need to on NA. And again, I will be back tomorrow. He ended? Oh. Okay. Then we will pivot. Let me send you guys over to Mr. Ventos. And I will be back again tomorrow. We're going to give Mr. Ventos some love. He's also a fantastic FGO streamer. And again, I hope you guys had a great day. Good luck with the 90 plus and plus. I believe they're out tomorrow. And I'm going to go give my voice a little bit of a rest. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for all the support. If you haven't ever gotten on Discord or you haven't subscribed to YouTube, make sure you guys do so. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you guys later.